Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call meeting to order, Jason let us know that he's going to be a little bit late, so to start without him, he gets here shortly. So the first thing I need is approval of the agenda. Any comments on the agenda, or can I take a motion to approve it?
I move to approve.
Second. All in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
I need to wait a little bit longer, Suzanne. Was that approved?
Yes, that was approved.
Okay, I've got to remember to wait a little bit for the delay. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on. Let me introduce John Gastrom to give us a report from IEC and to our talk from IEC, call it. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you, John.
We'll just see how it goes, then we can name it when we're done.
Okay.
No, thank you guys for having me here. It's really nice after the last year and a few months that we've had to be able to just sit again, talk to people face to face. I appreciate being able to be here, and I appreciate you guys giving me some of your valuable time to talk a little bit about IEC, the statewide association that represents all the cooperatives. And what we're here for is basically to work for you, or whatever you feel that we should be doing for you. And my goal today is to kind of go through the major areas that we work in, give you some updates and explanations on the things that we do, answer any questions that you may have, and feel free to stop me at any point along the way. Just wave at me, shout out. Please don't throw the screwdriver at me; those are sharp. But other than that, we'll go ahead and address whatever questions come up, and I'll talk about what's going on. And if you want to talk about current issues and current events, that's great. And then I'll get out of your hair and let you continue the rest of your meeting. So I like bringing these little screwdrivers with me. It's kind of my anecdote for doing work. And these are handy because they do 6 different things. They've got all the different bits and the nut driver and all that in there. And it's actually something that's useful. I'd rather not bring a gift out to you guys and have it be something that you throw in a drawer and never use. I'm a farmer, so I've always got, one of these kind of screwdrivers in my side-by-side, and I said they're handy for everybody to have one. So I hope you guys like that. I also brought this informational packet, and that packet roughly follows the same format as the slide presentation I'm going to do. I'm not going to read all the slides. I'm going to jump through the sections and give you an overview of them. And if I just go real quick, I can be out of here in about 3 hours and 45 minutes.
Perfect. We talked about.
So, well, I'll try to keep it crisper than that. So, Suzanne, there's a screwdriver and a packet here for you as well that you can grab from Steve when you get a chance.
Well, thank you very much. That makes me feel better.
All right. And try the chocolate chip cookies if you get a chance.
I might use that more than the screwdriver.
Well, how many of you are familiar already with IEC? Steve, no fair answering. Anybody else have a real good feeling, Jeff? I know Brett really knows what we do. So good. So a little bit of just kind of high level idea. Our mission statement is that we're here to unify, lead, serve, and advocate for our members. And that's kind of the theme of that whole presentation, and all of the different jobs that we do are things that help to bring co-ops together, to provide leadership, to serve you in some way, or to advocate on your behalf to help your voices be heard. So those are the types of things that drive and guide the services and tasks that we perform and the things that we do for you. what's interesting is IEC went through kind of an evolution back in the 1990s. We were becoming an organization that the membership wasn't necessarily thrilled about some of the things that we were doing or the way we were doing them. Maybe, I can speak in hindsight, maybe we had gotten a little bloated and we needed to reassess the way we do business. So we restructured the way that we offer services and we unbundled a lot of what we offer. So we said, okay, here are some core things that are hard to separate and say this only benefits one or certain co-ops. So there are a few core things that are part of the dues that you pay to our organization that we do that benefit everybody roughly equally, or in a way that's difficult to say one person gets more or less benefit. And then the other things that we do, we figure out what our internal costs are and what they need to be to cover that and do that effectively and still be able to have people that are up to speed on the latest things in their particular field of specialty. And we provide a price for that. And you can take that price and you can compare the cost of IEC doing that work for you against the market, against other providers, or even doing it in-house yourself and decide if you want to take that service from us. And we think that's important. We're an organization that you own, but you still have choices of whether you pay for some of the things that we do. If you don't feel it benefits you, you don't pay for it. So that's the approach that we take. We think it gives the membership a lot more ability to make good business decisions, and board members like yourself need to be able to make those analysis and say, this is good for IEC to do, or this is good for us to go somewhere else to do. And if you even decided to go somewhere else, like for example, our magazine is one of our unbundled services. You decide to take that and you only pay for that if your co-op takes that service. If you decided you didn't want to do that and you wanted to do your own magazine, we'd still help you. We'd help you do that. But we think we offer a world-class magazine. It's a pretty great publication, and we do that at a very competitive cost. I'll talk about that a little bit later when I get to that section of the slides. So Indiana as a whole has a lot of cooperatives. Other than Texas, that's got like 1 million cooperatives or some number I can't really count to because it's more than the fingers that I have. Now, Indiana's got one of the highest number of cooperatives in the nation as a state. So our voice to the elected representatives means a lot. The very cool thing is, if you look at that map, we serve 80% of Indiana's landmass. That means we cover a lot of territories that rural senators and representatives are covering as well. And our missions are often aligned. As co-ops, our missions are to make our communities that we live in better by providing reliable and affordable electric and improving quality of life. In some areas, providing broadband services. And that's a lot what elected officials want to do. They want to make their communities better and improve quality of life. So we find that our missions are often aligned. And because we serve such a great portion of the state, the elected officials like to come to us and find out, what do the co-ops think about this? We're considering this new regulation, this new law, this new bill, or this budget package, and we want to provide this. What do the co-ops think, and how can we align and help make our communities better? So it's kind of a good place to be. Going through our organization, I want to just give you kind of a brief overview of several different functional areas, and we'll talk about why they're important to you, what they do for you, and maybe some things that you didn't know that we did. For example, a lot of people, when I ask them, do you know what IEC does? They say, yeah, you're the guys that go down to the State House and lobby to make sure we don't get bad legislation that harms our membership. And that's true. And a lot of people say that's the most important thing that we do. because it allows us to speak with one voice and protect our membership from regulation that's unfavorable to them. But sometimes some of these other things are pretty important too. Now, administration and finance, I think that's the most important thing we do, because that's where my salary is maintained in the organization. So it must be the most important one, right? Well, that's not the real reason. The administration and finance group does services and provides help to co-ops in a number of areas that help benefit you financially. For example, if you're working on a sales tax protest, we've got experts that will help you with that sales tax protest, and we've actually saved some of our members substantial money in that area. One thing we do is we help negotiate with the Department of Local Government and Finance, a state agency that determines the count of the property taxes. And we've come up with a methodology for comparing a distribution member-owned cooperative to a investor-owned utility. One of the problems with property taxes is that they determine how much tax you should pay based on your market rate, how much your entity is worth. When you're an investor-owned and you you're a stock traded company, it's easy to go on the exchange, find your stock price, how many shares are outstanding, compute your market value. And that's something the economists and the accountants, they all know how to do that. I'm an engineer, so those numbers don't mean as much to me as your loads and your transformer losses. But you understand how that works. With a member co-op, there's not really a market value. So we came up with a comparative analysis tool that estimates what a market value of a co-op would be. And then we use that to go into the Department of Local Government and Finance on your behalf and say, Decatur County REMC's taxes are too high. We're suggesting that if you treated us similarly to an investor-owned utility, that our taxes would be this much. And in 2021, we were able to lower the REMC taxes in the state by $6.3 million through that project. In 2022, we're estimating that that'll be $6.8 million. So a lot of these studies that we do where we're going out, collecting information that's relevant to the different co-ops, we provide an anonymous source for that. We provide a centralized and unified source for that. When legislators want to have information about, well, what do co-ops charge for X? We can collect that information from the 38 because they don't want 38 different answers. They want one answer, either aggregated or averaged, and we can provide all of that information. We run studies comparing director per diems and employee salaries, all sorts of stuff that we can keep confidential and anonymized and provide data back to you that lets you make business decisions without exposing people's personal information. The slide shows a little bit about that property tax project that we do. Since we started with the new numbers, we've saved nearly 70 million now that we know what the 2022 estimates are. So we're pretty happy about that. So a lot of people say, hey, that sounds like that's one of the most important things you guys do.
And that goes back to what time frame?
So that goes back to, it was 2005, 2006 timeframe. How that started, we talked about that recently, the history of that. A law firm, Parr Ritchie, do you guys use Parr Ritchie?
Yes.
So Parr Ritchie and an accounting firm, London Witty Group, had actually collaborated and come up with a formula to originally do this. So IEC didn't come up with the idea, these other firms did, and they saved, over the first 2 years they did it, they saved a total of $400,000. Then the co-ops decided, well, we want IEC to do this because they took a percentage of the savings. So they said, let's have IEC do it. We've already got this organization. They've got smart people and in the finance group. So you guys take this and see what you can do with it. The next year they went in and they saved $2.5 million. So they had quite the improvement from, the average of 200,000 the first 2 years to 2.5 million, and the savings have been increasing year to year. We're pretty happy about that and the progression of that activity. So there's a lot of information in these slides, and so it doesn't take 3+ hours. I'm going to skip through a few, but you have it all on your call to order app. So if you're looking through that, or you're looking through the brochure and you see something that you want me to cover, just like I said, holler at me, or my phone number and email are on the last slide. So anybody here, call me anytime. I don't mind. You don't have to go through Steve. Steve knows how to get me. Brett knows how to get me. You can go through them. You can call me directly if you want. Always happy to take that call. Now, communications is really the most important thing we do. And one of the reasons is, and you know that here well, because Decatur County is one of our best co-ops at communication as far as understanding the way that communication has changed over the past couple of decades. It used to be something would happen. You remember the day when you would go home and wait for the 6 o'clock news to come on to see if they reported on, whatever happened that day. They might still have a 6 o'clock news, but it's now, there's news 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, weekends, holidays, doesn't matter. And it doesn't take a day for something to hit the news cycle. It takes minutes sometimes. And sometimes with social media, you've got people that are out there seeing stuff happen, taking pictures, posting it, tweeting it, Facebooking it, what all the different tools are. And that information is out there almost instantaneously. Sometimes you're playing catch up, trying to catch up with information that's out there and maybe even correct misinformation. So communications is so important. Nothing's more important to us than our members. And then the way we communicate with our members is that lifeline for making sure that we're meeting their needs. So that's why I think this is one of those key, critical, most important things that we do. Some of the specific things, you have communicators at each co-op, and we're helping provide them with educational material. We're providing them with what we call media toolkits that have graphics and text that they can use to help educate folks. I think recently you may have had some interest, like in all the stuff that went on in Texas over the winter, for example. And people see that happen and they go, can that happen at my co-op? What's going on in Indiana that's different than Texas? Or what do we have to worry about? So we try to anticipate those things and get the same information out to all the communicators across the state so they have talking points that can help give a consistent message. We do the legwork to verify all the data and make sure they have the information they need to ask the questions. This communications group also does that magazine. I'm more of an old school guy. I like a piece of paper, so my presentation's on the screen, but here I am reading my notes that I wrote in pencil and chicken scratch. You probably can't read them, Steve, but our paper magazine that we deliver, some folks will look at that, especially maybe some of the metro co-ops that are close to Indianapolis or the IOUs that are serving the metropolitan areas. And they go, no one reads a paper magazine anymore. And when we do surveys, more than 70% of the people that receive our magazine read it and can recall articles that they've read in that magazine. In the printed magazine industry, that number is off the charts. And in Indiana, our circulation has exceeded 300,000 subscriptions to that magazine now. The average cost for us to deliver that magazine to your members, less than 50 cents an issue. So less than the cost of a postage stamp to get that magazine into everybody's mailbox. And that's because of those readership numbers and that targeted demographic. So we know we're going to rural consumers in Indiana. And, a company like Steel Buildings, for example, they're like, I want to get in front of that certain customer demographic where advertising is very popular, and that keeps that cost to the co-ops low. And again, there's some co-ops that say that's not for me, and that's fine. They don't take the magazine. But I think out of 38, there's about 34 or 5 that are currently taking it. Just the quality of the magazine and the price makes them want to offer that membership. I talked a little bit about, there's the magazine stats, the communication tool kits, so important so that your communicators have the information they need. Your CSRs can talk to members that call in with concerns and issues. We do special publications as well, like the directory. I don't know if all of you have gotten your copy of the directory. Those went out a couple months ago, so you can stay in contact with other directors throughout the state. Some of the PR work that we do in helping prepare folks for working with the media. If you're ever dealing with an issue, I don't know if anybody here has ever been in like a television interview. Anybody? Television interview? It's it can be quite the stressful experience. So someone comes up to you, they might catch you unawares. They're shoving a camera and a microphone in your face, and they're asking you to comment on a specific issue, and they catch you by surprise. You're maybe emotional, you're reacting, and you say, "I don't know about that." Well, all of a sudden, all over the news is Decatur County REMCs don't know about the issues. So you have to. The only way to be prepared for that is to practice it. So we run simulations. We actually bring reporters in that will sit with directors. They'll rile you up. I met once, I even cussed at one of them. But you want to do that in a training class because you don't want to do that when you're on camera for real, right? So you want to go through and understand, oh, here's how, when this comes up, I need to control my emotional response. I need to know the issues, and I need to be able to respond in a certain way so that when this is relayed and my members see this, they know that I'm representing them. So it's a valuable offering we have. Lately, our graphics design has been very popular. This is one of those unbundled services, so you can sign up for this service if you want to use it. We have a great team that does work in graphics design, and sometimes those talents are hard to find. So you can actually purchase small blocks of time where you get so many hours a month of graphics design time. And if you don't use it all this month, you can roll it to the next month and whatnot. But then you only pay for the time that you're using and that you need. And not every co-op in the state needs to have a full-time graphics designer. We've got 1.5 people that do that kind of work, and they serve well for all 38 co-ops in the state. And that's where IEC makes sense, is when all 38 co-ops together, each co-op doesn't necessarily need or can't really justify having a specialist that does all of these special things. But when IEC can have one or a handful of people that are specialized in something like graphics design and make them available to everybody, it's an economy of scale that saves money and makes sense. Probably the most important thing that we do is working on professional development. And this goes for both your internal employees and your board of directors. So how many of you have been to the IEC offices to take a training class? Most of you? All of you? Yeah. So you know that if the annual meetings, say in New Orleans, you can fly down to the annual meeting a day or two early and take a couple classes, and they're like 900 and something bucks a class, or stay a day late, and then you've got additional meals and lodging and other expenses. What IEC does is we go across the state and we find out what the needs are, and we bring classes in to our office. So now you can drive to Indy and take a class for 200 and change instead of going to New Orleans and taking it for 900 and change. We think it's a much better way to do it. We're flying and feeding and lodging one person, the instructor. It's the same instructor who would teach that class if you were taking it at an NRECA event. And your training dollars as a board can go a lot farther, and you can get everybody up to speed and board certified a lot quicker on budget. So we think that's a valuable service that we offer to the membership. For our employees in the co-ops are one of the greatest assets we have. we have a lot of assets and wires and transformers and, you know, metal and wood and those types of things, but it's those human assets that are the most important to the success of the co-ops going forward. And you need to keep those people, they're still tools, but like any tool, you need to keep it sharp, and you need to keep those people trained and up to speed so they can face the challenges that are coming both today and, as we know, ones that come tomorrow are changing. They're different. It's not the same industry it was 20, 30 years ago when it worked the same for decades at a time. So the professional development options that we offer are, I think, extremely valuable. The leadership, when you have people retiring and you have great employees that need to move up into those leadership roles, you want to give them the skills that they need to succeed. So the leadership development, the RELIKE program that we offer, some of the other newer leadership development programs have been a great success. A lot of co-ops taking advantage of that. And I go in and I speak to these classes when these people are taking them, and we've got just phenomenal, intelligent people out there at all the co-ops in Indiana. So I'm excited for our future. One thing that's really taken off for us lately is some of the coaching opportunities. Coaching and mentorship has been really important, and it's one of the ways that people are learning more and more effectively in the new environment. So sometimes they need that one-on-one mentorship and coaching. We can provide that as well as other ways to help your people keep their skill set high. And if you see something here, feel free to go ahead and stop me. But again, you've got it in your packets. Some of our programs have been such top-notch programs when we've submitted them to universities like Indiana Tech. They are actually offering college credit if you complete our courses. So you can not only get your people trained through our programs, but they can receive some college credit for that as well. The director certificate programs, we've upped our schedule for that so that you can achieve your VLC and CCD certification on a 2-year cycle now. It used to be on a 3-year cycle. We have every class that you need to get it within 3 years. We've accelerated that so you can do it within 2 now. So pretty happy about
The
it.
same way for BLC as well, is that what you said?
VLC and CCD.
2 years?
Not there on Director Gold yet, but
Okay.
advocacy. This is another term, and this is where we talk about our government relations staff and some of the work that they do. Again, this is what many people feel is the most important thing that IEC does. I don't know if you're catching a theme with how much I love these different groups, but I feel that they're all the most important thing. When we get to work with the legislators and influence their decisions, that's one thing. When they call us and say, John, can IEC come in and educate me on this issue so I can make an informed decision? That's another. That shows you that they trust us, that they value our input. They know that we're a source that's going to give them the straight information. We're about transparency. We're about open discussions. I think Decatur's one of the REMCs in the state. That's kind of the hallmark of good transparency practices. So I'm really proud of you guys as a board, and I'm also feel fortunate because I can point to good examples when I'm dealing with legislators and see what a great job these guys do. But it helps us a lot when we can go in and tell a legislator, hey, here's why we think this legislation is going to hurt our membership. And they can come back to us and say, can you provide some more information? We've got it ready for them. They trust what we're doing. When they verify it, it's accurate. And it's enabled us to be very effective in speaking with one voice for the state. As an entity, the co-ops in the state altogether are the second largest power provider in the state. You may think the co-ops are small entities, but when you bring us all together, we're actually quite significant. When you look at the fact that we serve energy to 1.3 million Hoosiers. That's significant. You tell a senator, or when I sit with the governor and talk to him and say, yeah, our member base is 1.3 million Hoosiers. He hears 1.3 million voters. He hears, wow, that's a substantial component of my constituent base. We're in 89 of 92 counties in the state of Indiana. That's a significant portion of the state's area. So they listen, and they always want to know what the co-ops think about issues. So that's helped us be very influential and provide a lot of education to the legislative officials. When we need to call folks to action, we also have a member base that's ready to respond. So as you know, sometimes issues get down a certain path and you need to make some calls. Sometimes we'll call all the CEOs, and we'll get the CEOs to call their local legislators and help them understand an issue. Sometimes we'll reach out to all the directors. Sometimes we'll even work with the CEOs to reach out to the entire membership if it's a pretty significant issue and it's going to have that big of an impact on our rural communities. So that's important. We need to make sure that rural voice is heard when we're down at the State House. We move on to operations, because this is really the most important thing that we do. And I say it's the most important when you have people that are working on high voltage equipment. Nothing's more important in my heart, making sure every lineman goes home to his family at the end of the job. And what we try to do is make sure that we're providing the safety instruction. We're providing the tools that people need to do their job, not just efficiently and effectively, but in a safe manner. And I can't tell you how important that is. This operations group does a lot of other activities too that are important. When there's a big storm going on somewhere, co-ops help each other, but the coordination of that help can be a monumental task. So if a storm comes through your service territory, Brett knows he can make one call to IEC, tell us what he needs, and we'll take care of the rest. We'll make sure the help gets here that you need to help get your system back online.
2018 ice storm.
Yeah. So when Kentucky and North Carolina get slammed by major ice storms at the same time, and they can't handle it with just their in-state people, they'll start calling around, and they'll call Indiana. And Indiana is always one of the first calls they make because they know the quality of our linemen here. And we'll send crews to the other states that need that help. When we do that, we always send an IEC safety person to oversee that. But we have a shepherd that goes with each crew and makes sure that the co-ops that are receiving the help are treating our people properly. They're following safe practices. When you're working on a storm and you're working an 18-hour day sometimes, and you traveled, 100, 900, whatever miles to get there, and you can get tired. If you lose your focus for a split second when you're working on electric line, that could be a life-changing or life-ending moment. So our folks are always there to make sure that that focus on safety is first in their mind. And that's one of the reasons I think that the other states always want to call Indiana first, because they know that the excellence of our people and that focus on safety, they're not going to have to deal with issues if it's Indiana linemen that are helping out. That equipment that those linemen work on is not simple either. It used to be, years ago, you had electricity, it came out of a generator, it went through some wires, maybe a couple of transformers. Now you've got all this electronic control stuff. You've got transformer banking, not just plain old transformers. You've got these relays and regulators that are all digitally controlled and operated. And that stuff takes training and education to stay up to speed on. It used to take decades for the technology to change and be significantly different. Now you can have several changes in a year's time. I started out working in metering in 1991 for a utility in upstate New York, and some of the meters worked on were 40 plus years old, same equipment had been in place for 40 plus years. In the time since then, you might have a new meter that comes out, its software changes 4 or 5 times, and within a 2-year period, it's obsolete and you're replacing it again. Accountants hate it because your depreciation schedules are thrown all out of whack. Engineers hate it because you're always learning new software and they operate different. But it's what you need to stay up to speed with the demands now of things like smart grid and intelligent communications and automated advanced metering infrastructure. So I could go on and on for hours just about this. We're super proud of our rural electric apprenticeship program. IEC offers a program for training electric linemen. Hoosier also offers a program. They're very similar, and we work hard to keep the 2 programs synchronized. We're also working on a fiber training program as well, with as many co-ops starting to get into running fiber on the poles. Fiber is different. It's not the same as copper or aluminum. Other electrical wiring has different characteristics, and there's different safety concerns you have to be aware of. So we're offering training now for people that work in that telecommunications space to make sure they're operating effectively and safely as well too. These are all programs, again, that you don't pay for unless you're using them. As a member of Hoosier, you don't, Decatur doesn't subscribe to our rural electric apprenticeship program because you have a program that Hoosier provides as part of your power cost. So none of those costs go to Decatur County REMC. Only the co-ops that send apprentices through that pay for those programs. And we think that's important to make sure that we keep distinguishing that. Working with careers and the human resources we do is really the most important thing that we do at IEC. And one of the things that drove that home for me was when my HR group talked to me about the fact that over the next 5 years, between 2022 and 27, more than 38% of the co-op workforce in the state will be eligible for retirement. 38% is in a co-op. That's a significant amount of your workforce. And as we tend to do in the co-op world, you may be thinking, oh, we don't have to worry. We've got a lot of new people. We've just went through a wave of retirement and we've got these folks in here and they'll be here for 30 years. But when the next county over, their co-op has some folks retire, we tend to cannibalize from each other. So people see those opportunities. Oh, that's only, an extra half-hour drive from where I live, and there's an opportunity there. So sometimes you've got a good workforce, but one of your neighboring co-ops has a big wave of retirement, and then you feel the domino effect of that. So to combat that, we need to make sure that we have not only that professional development program I talked about earlier, but a new stream of people coming into the co-op environment. So we work hard with our careers initiative to make sure we have folks going out and talking to prospective employees at college career fairs, for example, where you've got people that are graduating. Maybe they grew up in a rural area, but they didn't know that there are really great jobs at their local co-op that they could go back, still live in their old hometown, and have a good progressive career that would be, one of the nicer places to work in a particular community. And more people today are wanting to live and work in rural America. You're seeing a big shift away from some of the urban centers of late. And it's a good opportunity for the co-ops to make sure they have that skilled workforce. And we're there to help create that pipeline. The college kids love it because we've got this fancy schmancy app that we use. And they're all intrigued by these apps. So you go to a career fair and you see, anybody remember being a poor college student when you only had enough money to maybe get like 10 resumes printed up? So you had to figure out where you could afford to, do I really want to give one here? Well, we have this tool where they bring us their resume, we scan it with a mobile device, it goes into a database that's now available to all the co-ops in the state. And then we hand them their resume back so they can use it somewhere else. They love that. And it's that when they see that edge technology and the way that we do things and interact with these young people, they're like, hey, maybe it is pretty cool to work at a co-op. So they like that and they're intrigued by it. So they want to follow up on it. And that's important to make those connections. And we do a lot of work in the human resources area to help you with your existing employees, work on things like policy handbooks or employee handbooks, or you need help with job descriptions, any of that. We're always glad to help with all of those things. Talked a little bit about career awareness, and that kind of rolls right into youth engagement. And this is really the most important thing that we do, because the young people of today are the leaders of tomorrow. So I used to get scared when my kids were teenagers, because I said, my teenagers are going to be the leaders of tomorrow. But I mean, if anybody here has teenagers or has had teenagers in the past, you know what I'm talking about. Sometimes they do some wacky things, right? But those people do grow up and they do turn into the people that keep the country running. And it's important to engage them when they're young. It would be great if we could go to a college career fair and talk to someone that grew up, you know, right down the road from the office that wanted to come back here and work at Decatur County REMC. But if that young person didn't make a choice when they were in 9th grade to take math and science, or 7th or 8th grade to take the courses that they needed to get on a path to prepare them for one of those jobs, then their opportunities become limited. So we found that it's important to create those touch points with young people earlier. So we sponsor and work with you guys, promote projects as early as kindergarten. We have kids that are working on our calendar student art. And it may seem like something that's, what does this have to do with a career in the future of the co-op? It's an engagement point. Those kids remember that they entered this art contest in kindergarten, and they entered it again in every grade through 12th, and they won a prize, and they got to go to the museum in Indianapolis and get an award, and they connect. And it's making those connections and remembering the people that supported you along the way that lead them back here when we need them later in life. The Youth Power and Hope Award for middle school students is a great program, and it gives kids a financial award for doing things that benefit their community. The work with the FFA and the 4-H is vital, because it touches such a great part of our service territories in rural Indiana, and a lot of the other activities. The youth tour being one of the most popular. By that time, you're working on rising seniors and taking them to Washington, D.C. and seeing them in action. To see a 17-year-old kid go toe-to-toe with a senator on Capitol Hill and discussing an issue and walk away and go, wow, I'm proud of our kids. It's a great thing. And every year we walk away feeling so proud of those youth we send on youth tour. We get near the end, I promise. I don't want to take up your whole night, but I needed to get to the most important thing we do, which is information services. So this didn't used to be something that was as big a deal as it is today, really. But you know that now we've got bad people out there, and they're trying to get at us and hurt us and cause us financial harm or financial gain for themselves. And they could be sitting in a basement in China or Russia or South Africa, and they could be also inside your business, hacking your systems, trying to ransom and extort money from you. And they never even have to set foot in the country, let alone into the building. This is driven home by what happened with Colonial Pipeline not too long ago and what the bad actors were able to do there that are believed to be from Russia. The allegedly Colonial paid over $5 million ransom to have their systems released and given back to them. I would have been nervous about paying a ransom. I'm like, how can you trust these people? You know, they have some of the best customer service. They call you, they thank you for paying the ransom. They walk you through restoring your system. And I talked to the guy, his name's John Pistol. He's been with the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security. He said their whole business model is built on good customer service. They have a reputation of once you pay, you're back up and going almost immediately. And that's vital to them because you make a business decision. Do I pay a ransom? You don't ever want to have to pay a ransom. But if it's $5 million to pay these guys and you're back on like that, or you're going to spend twice as much money and take weeks to rebuild your system, you might make the call to pay $5 million. Then you'll spend the money on your PR firm to combat that. And we'll help you with that as well if you need to, but let's not get there. Let's keep our eye on cybersecurity. How many of you have ever received an email that was a little fishy? A few years back, you're like, oh, I'll never get one of those. The other day, I'll admit this, don't tell my wife. I have a 12-year-old stepdaughter. She's the love of my life. She was mad at me, and I was on my way home from work, and I got in the car, put my phone in the little holder, and I look at my email, and it says, oh, just got an email from Dunkin' Donuts. It said, thanks for being a loyal customer. Click here for a free dozen Dunkin' Minis, those little round donut hole things. My daughter loves that. My stepdaughter, she loves those. I'm like, I'm going to be the hero. I'm going to find out where the nearest Dunkin' Donuts is. I'm going to stop and get her some donuts on the way home. I spent the next 30 minutes watching a training video on why not to click link in the email. My poor girl did not get a donut that evening. So it's more important than ever nowadays to be up to speed on those things. And it's more important than ever that we're connected with each other. When malware affects one co-op, we're connected to a lot of other co-ops. All our address books are filled with our comrades around the state that we work with all the time. So these things will harvest your address books, start sending emails to all the other co-ops and outside entities. It doesn't care if they're a co-op or not, but that's who are mostly in our address books. When you have a centralized group that can jump on those problems and help you shut them down and make the communications to others to say, hey, there's this issue going on. Don't click this email. It's not really coming from this person. John just wanted a donut and he fell for a scam. That didn't really send out to other people, thank God. But that's important. And because if it starts to spread and get through the whole industry, the whole co-op environment in the state, then we're dealing with a real major PR issue rather than an inconvenience of restoring a system or two. So that's an area that we can help with. Our folks in information services, they're here to help augment your staff as well. So if you ever need an outside look at things, Corey Willis, can't really see him in the picture there. You might be able to see him better if you're remote. He comes in, he looks at business processes and business systems and offers guidance and things, and he does a top-notch job at that. In my last area, I just want to talk about for a minute philanthropy. We as co-ops are really dedicated to making our communities better, and the things we do locally are important, but one thing I'm extremely proud of is I get to be executive director of Project Indiana. Project Indiana has helped bring electricity to rural Guatemala. The way that the co-ops brought electricity to rural Indiana 85 plus years ago. We've had linemen that have gone to Guatemala. Have you sent any in the past? So you've had a few go down, and you know they come back as different people. They come back changed and touched, and they come back appreciating what we have. So at the end of the day, this is the most important thing we do, is we serve our communities. We make the communities we live in and the communities around the world better places, and we improve quality of life for everyone that we deal with. So I'm really proud and honored to be in the role that I am. I am so happy that you guys spent some time with me today. I am more than happy to answer questions or if you don't have any right now, that's my email, that's my phone number. Drop me a line, send me a text. You want to just grab a cup of coffee one day, I'm all about it. So let me know.
When do we go back to Guatemala?
So funny story, I was supposed to go down 2 weeks ago and meet their new Minister of Energy, the guy that heads the power delivery portion. And the week before we were supposed to go, it was me and a couple other folks from Indiana. They had this huge outbreak of the new variant of COVID, and the State Department issued a level 4 travel advisory. That's like, don't go there, bad stuff's going to happen. And they said it was there was not only the COVID thing, but there was also an increase in murders and kidnapping. And I said, I think we should delay this trip. So we pushed it off a couple, probably into mid-August is when I'll go down and meet with the people in the Guatemalan government about doing a project. We were on schedule to do one in 2021, but it looks like the actual boots on the ground work will happen in 22. So later in 2021, we want to do a visit where we scope out a couple of communities and potential projects. Right now, we're working on trying to raise some money. Some folks are doing a raffle where they're raffling off some really cool things like a smoker and some other items. So you might see some of our folks when they come to do a safety class, they might be selling some raffle tickets as well. And at the state fair this year, they're going to draw the winner for that. Also at the state fair, if you don't know, my wife is the ice cream queen of the Pioneer Village at the state fair. So probably already hit up Brett to help scoop some ice cream this summer. You guys are all invited to participate in that. Decatur County staff is invited to participate in that. It's fun. You go there in the Pioneer Village. It's the old late 1800s, early 1900s, where they do like all the old school crafts and have the old tractors and equipment and stuff. And she works in that ice cream booth, scooping ice cream for people that come through. She's worked it out with the state fair that you can set it up for the day. If you provide some volunteers to help work there, we'll say sponsored by Decatur County REMC that day. Doesn't cost you anything other than some time and some people store shoulders from scooping. So we'll see a bunch of you there. Because if you don't scoop, she's going to make me go then. But thank you. That's my presentation. Again, if you have any more questions, I'm glad to take them. Otherwise, I'll let you get on with your meeting and you can follow up with me whenever. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Sound good. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Listen to me.
We're good.
Okay, moving on to the for your information section of the board packet. Is there anything in there that you guys had questions on? Not seeing any. So we'll go ahead and move on to the safety minute and cool moment.
Yeah, so this thing's gonna jump on me, so I'm gonna try to keep it going back and forth. So Cool moment. We had breakfast with Fred on 5:30. This was New Point. We did a post on it on Facebook. We actually had some new attendees, so that was great. It brought new conversation. Really good conversation, I thought. It was a time to educate. You guys just heard about the magazine from, and literally I had a lady there tell me that she uses that magazine's recipes. There's recipes in that magazine and she uses it just about every meal from, she has a stack of them about that big. So it's interesting to hear. We talked a little bit about the housing crisis. We actually had a realtor there. It was an interesting discussion. Texas got brought up, our outage process, and then infrastructure projects were all brought up as a part of that conversation. So I thought that was really cool. I didn't add this in here, but I thought it was neat. Also, you heard about that we have an art contest that happens every year through IEC, and there's usually thousands of kids across the state of Indiana that participate in it in each grade. And we actually had a winner for first grade at St. Mary's win this year. So out of like 100 kids, we had one here in town locally that was awarded that. So I thought that was pretty neat. As far as safety minute, we did have Hoosier came in. As you can see here, this is our live line trailer. It's all self-contained trailer, which means it has batteries. You don't have to plug it in. We've been kind of on the docket to do this. Our guys haven't been trained up on this. It's very hard to get this trailer for events unless you plan it out 8 months or so in advance. And the other problem is you have to have qualified trained people do it because it obviously operates a little differently and they feed it differently than you would see out in the real world. So we were able to go through that training in the morning. Another thing that I got to get used to doing, especially with anybody new in the room, is our fire and emergency exits. So if we would happen to have an emergency or a fire, there's an exit that way, and there's an exit where Clay just went out that door. In case of a tornado or strong storms, just follow us, but it's out this door and we can go to the left. There's two different areas there. There's a vault and a bathroom. So what was the one? Any questions?
Okay, then minutes from last month. Anybody additions or?
Yeah, I have something I want to amend a little bit, or the Hoosier report. We talk about the rate design and the time schedule for that, the implementation in April of 2023, and that's all correct. The next sentence says this should result in $5 per megawatt hour reduction over a 5-year period. That $5 reduction is correct, but that's due to the long range resource plan and not necessarily the rate design. The rate design is kind of a product of the new resource plan. So that needs to be cleaned up. So if you want to talk about that later, we can, but or strike that out or whatever, but it's not a result of the rate design. The rate design is a product of the long range resource plan. The long range resource plan is responsible for the rate reduction. Does that make sense?
How you want me to word that?
Just strike that last sentence.
Strike.
Yeah, I'll report that again tonight and you can put it in tonight's minutes. How's that? Just strike the last sentence, but the rate design, the timeline and that process is all absolutely correct.
I do have one addition or change also. A motion was made to close the meeting to executive session. And in that executive session, I'd like to report that Jeff chose not to attend. That's all. Anybody else have anything? Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So
There's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes stand as amended. Okay. Next, we have a request from Marilyn Davis to address the board on accusations against the nominating committee for wasting money.
Good evening. I appreciate you having us this evening. I would like to say we have Ronnie Vernon here, Kenny Peters, and Sandy Neiman on behalf of the nominating committee. And we're here tonight to question our duties as an elected nominating committee. In 2018, SBS of Minnesota was contracted to the counting of ballots through online and in-person meetings. What failed to happen was the bylaws were never updated, and as of 2021, there was no mention of SBS, what their duties entail for the election. The legal fees for this oversight is staggering, and we as a team are questioning why the board of directors need the legal counsel to interpret the bylaws, and what were the questions and answers you received from legal counsel. I received information from Brett that there was 32 calls made just on this alone. And we just want to make this wrong a right and just move on and get this over with, because this is the
Okay, but this is different from what you said you were speaking about, correct?
Yeah, well, and the money, yes,
Okay,
because it was brought up that they spent like over $11,000.
I understand that. Okay, so the question isn't an accusation that you guys are wasting money. I'm just, that's what we were told you were coming to speak about. I just want to make sure that's not what we're talking about. That's what your form says.
No, we said there was you were wasting money on
No,
this.
I've got the form right here. Accusations against the nominating committee for wasting money. Okay, I'm just making sure that that's not what we're talking about.
No, we just,
Okay.
so, yes,
So-
with the lawyers, what was put into the lawyers,
Okay, what was put into that?
yes.
We weren't able to prep for that. But we can talk about it.
But I'm still not understanding the question. Help me understand what you're asking and I'll,
Okay, I just want to know why there was 32 phone calls made between February and April. What was taking place? I would guess, I don't know what they were talking about, and we just want to know what the answers were.
I certainly wouldn't know the answer to that question. But I think that we do have a copy of the legal bills here.
I do too.
We shared that with you. You asked for that. It does say here that someone accused you of wasting money, which we can watch the video. And that was not said. The word
I
waste.
feel like it was said twice because I feel like we're being ashamed of
Oh.
bringing this up, because the bylaws basically are not saying that SBS is, in the.
And they wouldn't, because that contractor could change, over time. We aren't always going to use SBS, but we do, the bylaws state that we have the right to use other outside services.
That's what now we're reading.
So, and you asked what the lawyers determined. I believe that I sent that document in its entirety to all of you. I know I did.
I did not receive anything.
I have the email right here with all your addresses on it.
Well, I think,
Was that on April 13th?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Jason, last meeting, you said that we had cost the REMC like extra $11,000 for our meeting. For our meeting.
I said we have spent over $11,000. Now on your,
I talked to Maryland this week, it has escalated to 17,000.
yeah,
Now, we would like to know where that money, how do you figure them bills? I know part of it is you're figuring stipends that have not been paid. That was part of it. But why we can read the bylaws and why there was 32 phone calls or whatever, why do you have to go seek that much legal representation that according to the paper that Brett gave Maryland, there was $9,700 of legal fees.
Absolutely.
Why did it take that much? Do you understand now after spending $9,700?
I wasn't questioning it. I think the nominating committee was. So do you guys understand?
We never called the attorneys. We never spent the $9,700. We never made, when we called, anytime I ever called Wickens, Brett shut that off so he wouldn't attend.
I did not.
I shut that off.
Well, okay, you shut it off so they wouldn't attend. You made that decision.
And as we said at last month, those decisions have to come through the board. That is not a
Okay,
nominating.
that's fine, but where did the $9,700? Who authorized all them calls and who authorized spending that much money?
Okay. And I'll just make this statement. As the board chair, when issues come up that I'm not sure of their legal, it's my duty to get legal advice, to make sure that we are following proper procedures. And when we had a group of board members bring up an obscure bylaw, we had to make sure we were following the proper procedure.
Well, we're just like the directors. The nominating committee is elected by the member owners of this cooperative too. We're doing a good job, and this is what we were trying to do all along. And we have been kept from doing our job. It said we're to count all ballots with the assistants. What does that mean? Does that mean that we're supposed to have assistants? Or does that mean we're supposed to hire SPS? How many ballots do you think we're going to count this time?
I don't think you're going to count any.
Okay, what does the bylaw say? To count all ballots in any election with the assistants. Okay, should that mean that we're supposed to assist them?
Okay.
They should assist
Kenny,
us.
I'm going to ask you to stop right now. Okay? I know you're not happy with me. That's okay. But we've had this, we have a legal opinion on this. This is why we got the legal opinion, because we have differing views on what this means. Okay? So we got a legal opinion from both of our lawyers. Okay? Both of them agree that we are following our bylaws. If you disagree with that, I'm sorry. But because we have this disagreement, we had to spend legal fees to get their opinions.
Does this whole board agree with that we don't follow the bylaws? We're not following the bylaws.
We are following the bylaws according to our lawyers.
I do not agree with that statement.
Me neither. And with the $11,000, you said you had $11,000 you knew about that they spent.
Yeah, because I asked about it.
No, I never knew anything about that, so I was never informed of the $11,000. How did you know?
Because I asked about it.
Okay, well, then, when.
Because I was prepared to make that statement.
Board to let everybody.
I said it to everyone in here that night. If you want to play it back, we can watch it. It's about 40 minutes. I don't understand. I mean, you guys brought a concern to us, right?
I tell you, we started this. Okay, go ahead.
Let me finish.
Yes.
You guys brought a concern to us, right? A concern. This was a real concern. You and I have talked about this before. Bring us a real problem that we can work on. So you guys brought us a concern. So we ran it. We vetted it. We talked about it. We sent it to legal and we got an answer. You don't like the answer. So therefore it's still a problem.
So why didn't you just change the bylaws then if you don't like them? You're not.
I'm not the one. You guys are the ones that don't like the answer.
You're not following the bylaws.
That's your opinion. That's not legal's opinion.
I think it is. If you read letter F of 1 about the CEC's responsibility and authority, I think that's been completely not, you said obscured. I believe anything that's an actual bylaw is still in the law. Until it's removed, this
So
is
what specifically are we violating? And F,
Read it for us, please.
the CEC does have authority to decide other matters relating to the manner of conducting the election, including registration, ballots, and voting procedures. And counting the ballots would be a voting procedure.
by your interpretation.
That is correct.
So did you read the email that I sent you that had Bar Ritchie's?
I have it right here. That's what I read that from.
So that was their opinion
That's their opinion, yes.
and you don't agree with it.
No, I agree with that. We're not following it.
I'd have to read the entire document again to confirm or deny that, so. But this is why we have the legal fees.
Don't you think that's a little ridiculous?
Yeah, I do. Absolutely, I do.
That we had to go through this process.
And it's still not resolved.
It's still not resolved.
For you,
Or you had Robert Wickens come to the meeting and he wouldn't answer questions. And those questions were presented to him prior to coming to the meeting. So I believe.
Not
you and I had a discussion about that, and I suggested that you give the lawyer the questions ahead of time. I was told he did not have the questions ahead of time.
And who told you that?
But we had a discussion in this room. Sandy and I did.
Okay, well, I talked with Robert, requested
You
him,
submitted the questions, not the nominating committee.
correct, on behalf of the Credential and Election Committee.
So is this a credential and election committee issue, or is this a nominating committee issue?
Well, I believe it's both, because I believe the information from Carl Ritchie was pretty much about the Credential and Election Committee procedures and authority.
So,
And that's what you sent to all of these guys.
so can we just boil this down to what actually is the problem?
We're not following the
What
march.
actually is the problem is we are not allowed to do our job.
Okay. You want to count the,
We want to follow the bylaws and count the ballots.
so,
Absolutely. And we tried to work this out. I talked to Brett in February about this problem. I came to the meeting in February.
but
And then I contacted him.
Please,
Please what?
please, this is a board meeting.
can I?
Yes, Jason.
So at that time, Kenny, at that time, when you were trying to get this information, what did you ask for?
I asked.
You asked for a copy of
asked
the
him for the
contract.
Contract.
So that's where the goose chasing started.
Okay.
If we would have just right up front, here's the problem, let's solve it, instead of, I want to see this. I'm not going to tell you why, but I want to see this.
I wanted to do, I asked to see it so we could be involved in the voting process. We had talked about, as the nominating committee, had talked about sharing the responsibility with SBS. And I asked Brett, and I reminded him a couple times between the February and March meeting. And he told me that, he said, I don't know why you're in such a big hurry to get this done. The election's not till June. And I told him then, I said, this is what's going to happen. We're going to drag around and nothing's going to happen. That's exactly what happened.
But I think a lot of these kinds of issues can be resolved if we just upfront say, this is what I want. This is what I'm looking for. That's what Marilyn did. I want to see the itemized bills. So she got it.
We wanted to be involved in the voting process, but nobody cared about us. Because we've got to deal with SBS and we're going to put you off and drag our feet and put you out of the way.
But do you think that would still be the same issue if we didn't have the closed annual meeting last year and the drive-through event this year? Because prior to that, you guys were participating and counting and doing that. But because of the pandemic, we weren't able to do that this year and last year. I'm just asking a question.
Well, I'll just ask you the question back.
No, I ask you a question first. Answer my question.
I think I can answer that question. Because I came on the board 2020 and I started asking questions about how this election was run. And I did not know SBS was, and then we found out they were not in the bylaws, that the bylaws I feel should have been changed. Incorporate SBS in the process for the election. And it's black and white here, what it says. And, we were told that this could be incorporated read 3 different ways by Roberts. And I figure when there's a bylaw, black and white, this is what it means, not 2 or 3 different ways to read this. So we're just trying to say, in the bylaws, I feel SBS should be part of the bylaw.
What happens if their cost goes extremely high and we want to use?
And that was my next question. Okay, is it a yearly contract? Or- Okay. And you know my feelings against this. I brought this up since day one. I'm totally against this SBS because I feel we only have 1,700 votes. Our vote in 3 years from 2018 to 2020 only went up 5%. I feel we can handle those votes, and I feel like until we reach over 3,000 votes, then maybe we can look at a voting process, something different. But I feel until then, we have 8 members on our nominating committee that we could sit down surely and count votes. Like I say, I'll take $11 a vote because that's what basically paying them to do the 1,700 votes. So that's just my, I could say, we just want to do our job. This is what I was on the voted for on the nominating committee, and I just want to be fair and square and see what's going on.
So you're still on the nominating committee after the selection, right?
Yes.
So would it be something that could be worked out for the next election? I mean, why are we having all this drama 3 weeks before the election?
But like I said, we've been bringing this up, and I just think, I don't know if there was.
Asking for the contracts and all that stuff.
Yes.
Sure.
And so,
Why did you think we wanted to see the contracts?
Who knows?
Oh,
I know what,
I'm smarter than that.
I know why you wanted to see it, because you want to see how much it costs.
No,
Oh.
that's absolutely, I could care less.
well, isn't that,
Well, then see, I didn't know why you wanted them, because that would have been my guess.
but isn't that public knowledge that we would know how much this costs?
No.
For the nominating committee?
No, well, did you know?
No.
No, you didn't know until we told you. So
That's a trade secret that they asked us not to disclose.
I didn't know.
Yeah, neither did I.
No, this was the very first year. What was the
I
estimate?
had an idea. It was in the minutes. The very first year we used it, it was in the minutes.
And that's the very first year, and how much?
You had an idea, and like this deal, is it 11,000? Is it 17,000? Does it really matter? At the end of the day, you guys brought a concern and we went through the process. We tried to get the information that you guys wanted. Now, I'm sorry that it's not the result that you wanted, but we spent time of our time, staff time, and SBS time, and we spent money. Every time there's one of these little things that come up, there are dollars associated to.
And I understand,
And that's the only thing I was getting at. You know, I'm tired of hearing this. You guys aren't listening. You guys aren't doing this. Well, yeah, we just spent $17,000 on this exercise to make sure that we got you guys the information.
why couldn't, since it was legal counsel, you should have known about, why did you discuss this? Why did you have to have that interpret?
Because it's exactly why we're in here right now debating this, because neither one of us really know. Right? I mean, I have no legal degree to interpret those bylaws.
We have to know what's going to hold up in court of law. I mean, that's the reason.
I'm not gonna Google. So sorry that it's got to this place, but I felt like we were really trying to get you the answers that you were looking for.
I just think, about SBS and, their process. I did not think about that, and I do.
Yeah.
And like I say,
And I didn't either. So that was good for all of us, right? I think them coming and doing that, I think that was all good. We found out we have a CEC committee. I never even knew that existed. Okay. It's not convened in many, many, many years.
So can I make a motion this evening that we ditch SBS for next year?
No.
But I mean, if you're on the nominating committee and you guys collectively want to come up with something different, bring it to the board, then do that. But we can't do it 3 weeks before the election.
I know. I was going to take back to
Even February, we were already under contract. Even in February, we're talking directly after this election is when that process.
It was approved in the budget in December.
Start talking to them in December.
Yeah.
That was never mentioned in February when I asked.
When did you sign the contract,
I don't know the date on it.
Brian? Michael?
I'd have to go back and look.
Okay, I would like you to, please. You don't have to have it tonight, but I would like to know when you two signed the contract.
I don't think they signed the contract.
I don't think they did either.
That's a management responsibility.
No, it's not. That's another bylaw. That has to be approved by the board.
It was approved by the board through the budget.
A budget item.
Okay, who signed the contract?
Rachel, she's the manager that owns that contract. I probably have 300 contracts.
There's no signature on the contract.
Yeah, there is.
No. Not on,
Because you've seen it.
The one that you have, probably not, but I mean, we have a signed copy of the contract, an executed signed copy of the contract.
So you got this unsigned,
I picked it.
you got it.
I asked for it.
I think there's an email where he asked for it. Everybody should have known that.
so is it, I mean, is it just a copy? It could just be a copy.
I don't know. Evidently, it's not the original if it's not signed.
No one asked for a signed copy contract. Someone asked for the contract. That's what we delivered.
Very good.
So when the
I'm
next
good.
contract comes around, yeah, we vote on that as a nominating committee.
Can I make a motion?
That's a board.
It's a board
decision. That's a board.
I say, so when is the next contract?
Based on what you
When do
said.
have to sign the next contract? I mean, when do we have to have the next contract signed?
It'll be, well, we do budget in November, December time, right?
Right.
What I would like to, and I'd like your help wording this. After the election, I would like to get the nominating committee, the offgoing and the oncoming, get them together, discuss what we need to do with our election. And then we alter the bylaws to support both the nominating committee and the board. That's my motion.
Say that again, Jeff.
Well, I need help wording it, but I want them, the nominating committee, when I'm appointing, and the new nominating members, the ones going off, the ones coming on, to be part of drafting what our election process should be. And then as a board, we will determine and write the bylaws accordingly.
I think you need to, what I would
I
say,
am talking to Jason.
I think that I appreciate where you're going, but the nominating committee is not going to draft how we're going to conduct the election. They can make a recommendation.
I'm saying, we
Recommendation.
have them, that's why I needed your help wording this. That they make recommendations that the board can support, and then we alter the bylaws to follow what we're actually doing.
But I want it to be clear that just because it's presented that this is the way we think that we should do it, that's immediately what the board's going to support, because we don't know that.
Well, but that's why we're the board, but we can take their input and we can work together.
I have no problem with some input from the nominating committee. I don't know why you need old and new, but
Because they have the experience of both.
that's fine.
And my comment on that would be if we have a committee that old and new that wants to be on it, so that wants the input, why aren't they organizing that? Doesn't seem like something we as a board need to organize.
Those were not allowed to do anything else.
why don't we just survey the members?
Almost second motion, Jeff, just, man.
Why does this need to be a motion? Because I want it documented. I want to make sure they're involved so we don't ever go through this again. And then our bylaws are written to support this. And Dale, you're welcome to your input.
You're suggesting that based on their recommendation, we should alter the bylaws? Am I understanding that?
Bylaws are not accurate. We need to clean it up one way.
I'm saying,
Well, and that, I
your
guess,
opinion is the bylaws are not accurate.
Well,
Your opinion.
you're from Farm Ridge.
Yes.
It was her opinion also.
I would disagree with that. I am the one that had to talk with her about this.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
You're twisting what she has written.
No, I'm not. I read exactly what she wrote. And if we want to table this vote till next month.
No.
I'm fine with
Yeah,
that.
well, we're kind of getting the habit of doing that. I think.
And I'm good with that. That way everybody can think about it. But the motion that I've made and Carl has seconded is to involve and I need your help wording it.
You said we don't have a motion. If it's not worded, we don't have a motion.
Okay, Mike, well, I didn't ask you.
No, Jeff, I'm the president,
Chairman, actually.
chairman. I'm sorry.
President. Please word it.
And I asked you why you've not included the CEC.
Pardon?
Why are you not including the CEC?
Because after the election, everybody will be part of the CEC.
No, they would not.
No.
And the staff, I would suggest.
No, this staff should not be involved with the director's election.
So
This isn't a director's election. This is the tallying service.
No, this is the election process. So how about, well, can we add this to the agenda for next month and I'll withdraw my motion?
that sounds like very fair right now.
I just don't want this to get lost and next February, we start this process over and we're scrambling to fix it when we know of an issue.
Well, there is not an issue, but there's a perceived issue.
There's a difference of opinion then,
I'll agree.
because I feel there is an issue. So I will withdraw my motion as long as there'll be discussion next month involving the nominating committee to look at future election processes.
In the meantime, do we want to survey?
Brett, can we talk about this? Directors,
This is a legitimate question.
we are directors making a
I
discussion.
understand we are a director, but we take input from our staff. He has a legitimate question, asking if it makes sense to survey our members. See what our members want. So please be respectful.
There are many, Farm Credit uses SBS. Lots of other co-ops use SBS now.
I'm not saying we don't use SBS. I say the contract should be known by all directors. There should be no hidden agendas. It should all be upfront. And we go forward. And we modified the bylaws accordingly. And all I'm asking is it be on the agenda next month for discussion?
I am going to repeat Brett's question because I think it's valid. Is it worth surveying our whole members to see if they appreciate the way they're being balloted right now?
I don't think anybody's disputing online and electronic voting is part of this. I think what's the dispute is who is doing what and everyone knowing how it's being done.
It is being disputed a little bit in the fact that bringing up all of our costs and bringing this home are excluding electronic balloting.
No, not necessarily.
Everything that has been presented to anybody so far, that us doing it in-house has excluded electronic.
I think with what I've read about survey and ballot, we could do an in-house platform where we're actually doing our own electronic ballot.
But how much would that cost?
It's much cheaper than what they're charging us. Now, I'm not saying that it's the better way to do it, but I'm saying that's what we need to be discussing. So we all have all the facts.
Okay.
And then once we have the facts, if we want to survey the members, then I'm good with that. But what would we survey them with now? I think we need to offer electronic balloting.
I would like to hear this cost for electronic balloting. How much would it cost us to do?
I will find out, Michael. To find
Right
out,
now, you're telling me it's cheaper. So that tells me you have a number.
well, I think Brett said it was at least $5,000 cheaper if we counted ourselves.
That was
No
no.
electronic.
How about I'll take as an action item, I'll get with SBS and find out the cost for next month, so I'm not.
No, not with SBS. This is.
No, SBS offers a do-it-yourself
Okay.
program
Okay.
that is much cheaper.
I have a question. I don't know who wants to answer. Marilyn, maybe you, since your name's on here.
Does the certification information that SBS brings to the table, does that not give them any validity or credibility? Is that, I mean, the certifying processes that they use, does that not carry any weight in your eyes?
But when I saw the video, I was very impressed. I just don't feel, like to say again, spending that time and money. Like I say, if we had over 3,000 votes, and I could see spending that kind of money for voting. But we're only at 1,700. And we're not even a third. It's about a third of our members. We've got 6,300 members. I'm tired, and I hate to waste money. It's my money. I take it along.
So,
So, okay, I want to go back to who's she about who was you talking about? She.
the lawyer.
Okay. I thought when we met with Robert was the one that wrote the bylaws.
Yes. And he agreed. We asked him if he signed off on her interpretation.
I didn't catch that.
Yes. On Par Ritchie's interpretation.
I think maybe the confusing thing, Marilyn, is that you guys didn't have that memo, and I think he thought you did. And I don't know that was anybody's fault. It was just, that's the way it was.
I'm good for this year. Like I say, I just think maybe we need to really look at this for the coming year, see where Texas. If our voting is up to 3,000, I'll look at SBS for next year. But like I say, let's see what the voting brings in this year, and we'll hope for the best. So that's what I have.
Dale?
Well, I just have a question. So as long as our vote count is in fact at the level we're experiencing, you don't see the necessity or the need for SBS.
Now, I just, when Jeff mentioned that we could do our own process through them, maybe we need to look at that. Like we
Okay,
just,
so it's the do it yourself or whatever. So
until we get numbers that I feel is worthwhile. That's my opinion.
Well, I've withdrawn my motion as long as it's going to be on the agenda for next month's discussion. Fair? Fair. Good with that, Brian?
All we have, I appreciate your time. Sorry this is taking so long, but I don't know if we got this resolved or not, but I hope we have a good election. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Brett, we're to the CEO thing.
Someone stand up. First off, I would like to welcome Matt Raver. So Matt is our accounting and finance manager. Just started a couple weeks now, right?
May 3rd.
May 3rd. Yeah. So you get a chance, welcome Matt. Couple updates. I know Jason, you'd asked a week or two ago about so there is a bill in Congress right now for the RUS loan repricing, which is a big deal to us. That means we could reprice all of our debt at a current interest rate. So it would be a large deal for us. Anyways, it's gaining traction. We thought it was dead, but it is gaining traction in Congress. So I'll keep you guys up to date with where we're at on that. But there's hope that it's not completely dead. Yeah, and it could be around $210,000 a year savings that goes through. So it's significant.
It's a bigger number than that for us because of Hoosiers.
That's just.
Yes, that's locally.
That's almost $2 a megawatt hour if Hoosiers able to reprice theirs.
Okay.
So that's
I didn't consider that.
That's a big number.
That side.
So we'll hope that it gains traction. We thought it was basically dead, but they put it back on the docket and they've gotten quite a few folks to sign up to it. So
Is there any way to predict when there will be a disposition?
no, because right now they're trying to get more people on the bill. So my guess is it'll come to grassroots and we'll be asking you all to help us make some phone calls. But I don't know when they'll take your question. Second thing to note is strategic planning. So we have our ops review next Wednesday. That finishes all of our inputs for our strategic planning. So I'll be working with you all. We need to get a date set, 2 dates set. So one is going to be a day and a half, and the other one will be a half-day event to land on vision and then strategic planning after that. So we want to get that done this year. We have a facilitator. I'm starting to work with the facilitator to give him the information summaries of what we got from our 11 different reviews. Then I'm going to go over the company metrics. So last month, April, we were roughly about 4.5 degrees cooler than our 5-year average, which that doesn't sound like a lot, but it actually is quite a bit in our world. So you can tell where our HDD, this is a heating degree days, was at for April. So we were just about right at the 5-year average. What's that mean as far as purchase power? So here's April. We were just about 6% above the 5-year average. So it was 4.5 degrees cooler. We actually have more energy purchased, roughly 6% over our 5-year average for the month. And our demand was up roughly 5%. As far as operation metrics, so this top graph is our TMED. So every time you see these big blips, that means there's probably a storm. It's been relatively quiet. You're going to see that in some of the financials here shortly. But you can see April starts about right in here. So it's this part right here. It's been relatively quiet in the month of April. And it reflects down here. This is lost consumer hours. This is April. Here's the bar right here, this green bar. So it's about right where my pointer's at. 5-year average is up here. So it's a pretty quiet month. I did mention, or I did put in here, line loss charts. Jason had asked last board meeting, has it kind of leveled out? As you can see, because of the billing, we had that huge jump here. It did come back down and we're back at a relatively normal level, I would say, for both charts that we track. AR, so this is accounts receivable past due 30 days. Crystal was all worried when she saw her number because it did drastically jump from last month. If you look at April, right here's the line. This was last month's, but we're still well within the 5-year average. So it's typical for this time of the year to see that. Plus, we're coming off of stimulus and all this other things that are probably contributing. Our 90-day, this is probably the more important one because these are folks that have been through the cost disconnect. And so 90 days, our April number is lower. So even with, so this was kind of what we were talking about as far as the impact of COVID. It didn't impact us too bad as far as the 90 days. So we're right under, or well under, I would suggest, our 5-year average. Of course, this big dip here is the write-offs, which we'll be doing for this year shortly. I'm going to go over project updates here in a minute. I'm going to go ahead and jump to financials unless there's any questions on that part. Questions so far? You okay if I jump to financials? All right, so financials were relatively, I won't tell Matt this, but relatively boring for this month. So if you look at, so we always talk about our balance sheet first, right? So if you look at our assets, we went from 56.6 million to 56.2 million, which is basically a drop of 373,000. That's really due to lower cash balance and lower AR up here. That follows down to the same drop, obviously, on the other side of the balance sheet, which is really due to AP, so accounts payable being down roughly 45,000 prior month. So really not a whole lot of activity on the balance sheet. Statement of operations, I'm going to start with April's number. So if you look at this number right here, this is budget to actual as far as revenue, down about 5%. So for the month, we were down about 5% on revenue from budget and about 8% on power. So obviously our revenues are going to follow the power. And then our controllable expenses right here were about 11% lower to budget at this point in April specifically. We go to end of year. Basically, these are the two numbers that we're kind of looking at, right? So your operating revenues is down about 5.2% to budget, and we're down about 8.3 to budget in power costs. Those two numbers are very in line with last month. So, and then if we go down to year to date on controllable expenses, so that's right here, we're down about 15.7%. And last year or last month, it was 17.2. So we did catch up a little bit there as far as expenses over last month. How did I get back? All right, and then cash flow. So from a cash flow statement, we started the month at 2.7 million. We basically received 2.5 and we sent out the door 2.7, which left us with 2.5 at the end of the month. That's a decrease of 181,000. Really, most of that is due to we paid our property taxes and our URT taxes. Normal months you accrue it. This last month we actually paid it. So that's what you see the decrease in cash for. I'm going to move to some of the graphs. I'm gonna hit this relatively quickly. So if you look at the sales of electricity graphed out, the orange bar is our budget, green bar is our actual. We're running about our 5-year average, less than budget. Same thing on power costs. You're less than budget, about 5-year average. When it comes down to the end of the day, gross margins basically as a cumulative are right exactly where we want them to be or where we plan on. All right, so on this one, I'm going to go through mainly this up here. This is variance to budget on KWH. So if you look at all of our KWH spread across the different classes, where they're at compared to budget. So, and I'm going to walk you back from last month. So last month, this was negative 1.68. We're now at 1.24. So we made up to our budget a little bit on total KWH. What were the main drivers from that? This right here is our IPT load. So that's our transmission load. It was negative 0.8, so almost negative 1%. It's now positive, just about 0.3%. So their load has went over budget, over what we expected on budget. And then you've got gray, which is our industry without IPT. So this is just our industries. Last month, that was at 1.35. You can see it's dropped a little bit here. It's at 0.63. And then you've got our commercial, which is pretty much in line with last month. We're at negative 2.89, with the majority of that being in large commercial. And then residential did take a little bit of a decrease. We're at 2.3 and we're at 2.5 now. So big picture, we made up a little bit of what the budget was as far as sales. But that's mainly driven from our IPT, which is transmission customer. Controllable expenses. We're getting close to that midpoint of the year. These can change within one night. So I'm just going to give you what we think at this point, what we see as far as kind of end of year. So I'm going to start with A&G. This one is going to be the one that we expect it's going to look the same at the end of the year, according to what we see right now. Basically, it's all driven from labor, taxes, and benefits being under what was planned in budget. Some of that is due to MAC getting on later in the year than what we kind of expected. But we will end up under budget here. We're thinking the numbers we see right now, right about 100K. This we'll never get to budget. We'll be underspent on the budget in A&G. Corporate relations and billing member services are a little bit different story. We expect those to be pretty much to budget. Same thing. It's going to tell us we're going to be over or under a huge amount in either of those. And then I'm going to lump operations and maintenance together. So our linemen split their time between these two areas, right? And so if they're spending more time doing what we consider maintenance stuff, there's going to be more hours there, which means there's going to be less hours in operation type or maintenance operations type work. So what I'm seeing right now is we're about $100,000 under budget in labor, taxes and benefits. $100,000 is can be one storm. So don't get too excited at this point because that could change pretty quickly. And then the major offset right here is right away timing. So it's just timing of invoices. Matt brought up a good point. I sometimes beat on them and say, get your invoices. And Matt's saying, why are we telling them that? If we want to hold if they want to hold, if we want to not have to pay them and we can hold on to our money longer, that's great. That's a good point. So there is some timing issues there, by the way. All right, cumulative. So this is plant spend. So I want to spend a little bit of time on this because of just timing and what I'm going to propose for next month's board meeting. This is the spend plan for our plant. You can see it's right around that over $3 million there. But the ramp up here is all dependent on our pole replacement project and the 3 plant improvement projects that we're doing. Those got kicked off. Obviously, once we approve the budget, but because there's a contract that has to be done, they really didn't get started until, around here. I did give you guys some updates in their project updates, but they are completed with the field work on the pole replacements, and they'll be doing that field work now for the 3 big projects that we're doing the rebuild project. So I do foresee this moving out a little bit, probably more like down in here. It will hit we're going to hit our numbers. We'll get the projects completed that we have planned, but it's probably going to be out just a little bit farther. And that'll affect cash flow a little bit. Which is next. So this is just our cash flow projections. The green over here is our actual. We had planned to have the 2.5 that we have in the bank today for our planned plant projects coming up. You see it starting to drop off here as we start getting invoices on the work that we're doing. I expect this to probably go out into here. This is August timeframe. So I suspect that this is going to again come back out here. And it's just because the timing that you guys approve those work plan projects is at the end of the year. And it ends up backing up by the time we get the contract done. It's usually 2 months under the year. So they're already 2 months behind the buck. So if we could get them started prior to the year, in other words, if you guys approve those projects prior to budget as a board motion, then we could get actuals put into the budget and they could get kicked off right at the beginning of the year. Because now it's going to be crunch time to get all these projects done. Which we didn't account for in here. So this will be out just a little bit. Your planned borrowing that we have for the year, it's probably going to in total look the same, but it is going to be out later in the year than what we had originally planned. So that was the last comment I was going to make is I would suggest, and I'll plan on bringing it to you next month. We have our 2022 projects that were approved in the construction work plan ready to go. All the numbers and the projects that we're doing are all laid out already. I need to get it into a presentation form so that you guys can make sense of it. So I would propose that we bring that to the board meeting, not necessarily need to approve it next month, but we discuss it, do whatever we need to do, and then get it approved, before budgeting. What that does is it allows us to go to PSE and say, okay, here's the projects we need. Go start them. And then they'll go actually bid these projects. They'll go do the field work, do the engineering. They'll have them bid out. So then by budget timeframe, we'll actually have actuals from the bids because they have to go do 5 bids. They'll pick the cheapest one for our US rules. And we'll have actual numbers, and then we'll be able to kick these projects off like January 1 with a completed contract, instead of getting behind 2 or 3 months and then having to try to crunch it in by the end of the year. Does that make sense? Questions on that? Any questions from a financial standpoint at all? None? Good. Good.
Projects then still, or was that?
The main thing is pay attention to I can actually go over a few of them. I sent you guys all the project updates. So let me go through that real quick. Safety improvement plan. So we did have, we implemented an updated SOP for our safety committee. We actually had our second one with the new SOP this morning. How long was that, Crystal? Hour and a half, 2 hours. It was awesome discussion. The reason we're sitting in a little bit different format was due to a walk around that we did with our IEC safety coordinator, just thinking about safety and getting to exits and things like that. So the front lobby security risk mitigations that we did, Crystal did hear back, and the door or the drive-through window is in, and we're expecting to work that next week. Pole replacements, PSE has completed the field work. So this is all the poles that we have that are outstanding except for 2021s, obviously. Bid process is due to be completed by 6/11 with replacement starting in 7/9. And again, that's what's critical about us getting getting those numbers approved early on, because you have to wait 2 or 3 months to get the contract all completed and signed, which this was the first time that we had a contract with PSC. So hopefully it wouldn't take that much time, but it does get everything in the queue. So right now, 7-9 is when we're expecting to start on those. Our guys are working as we have time. And then we're just removing those from the costing and the contract from PSC. Meter pole replacements, we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. And then construction work, field work is in process. The bidding process is to be completed by the end of July, with construction to start in August. So when I was talking about all that cash flow is going to back up, that's because of all this work that's going to be done. It's going to happen a little bit later. They are assuring us that they have crews available to finish this work by the end of the year. So it isn't a factor of not getting it complete. I talked about the strategic plan that we got to get dates on the calendar for. You guys heard a little bit about how important IT security is. Crystal and her team are working the RC3 program. That program is a risk assessment based IT security program. And so we are continuing to work on that program. Any other questions on projects specifically?
Okay. Then we're going to move on to the cost of service scope. And last month we talked about, with new rates coming from Hoosier, that we are going to need to do a cost of service for adjacent.
I said that we needed to do it in 22 because the new rate structure will be implemented in 23.
Right.
And the member system will be doing it, so we needed to get on.
So in the past, we've used Prime Group to do this.
I would not support using Larry Feltner and Prime. I think we need to get a cost comparison from multiple sources, pricing, and then I think we need to understand how their rate structure designs work.
My question to you, we had him come and describe everything to the board.
You're correct. And I chose not to come, and I won't get into why I chose not to come, but I'm just telling you up front, if we're making a motion and it needs action tonight.
No, I didn't say
it said it needs action.
Huh?
So that usually means that we're going to make a motion and push it through, correct?
Not necessarily.
Okay, well, I would like a couple different things then. I'd like to get multiple quotes doing the cost of service studies. I'd like to understand each cost of service study service design structures, and I'd like a cost of service subcommittee put to be together out of these directors. We had one last time and it got disbanded, and it created a whole lot of conflict and a whole lot of questions. And again, it's just like the nominating committee. I would rather be able to ask the questions up front, get them answered, instead of after the fact.
Can I add something to that, Michael?
Go ahead.
I absolutely agree with the cost of service study for next year. I kind of feel like it's auditing on the accounting side, that it's not a bad idea to rotate those type of services to be used as consultants, just my opinion. But I also feel like when we had a meeting with Larry Feltner, he expressed they use averages and not the exact numbers is what he.
That is not what you said at our meeting. That, once again, you were not at when he described it to all of our board members, actual numbers.
I was at a one-on-one, and I asked why he didn't use actual numbers. Were they not provided? He said they were provided, but that's how they calculated that was on averaging.
Well, we specifically asked him when he came to present to the whole board, and he specifically told the whole board that he used actual numbers. He did not use averages. He told the entire board that showed up to that meeting that he used actual numbers.
Well, then I apologize. I didn't record that one-on-one with him because he told me they used averaging.
They do
And I
use
asked why
averaging for
the
some
actual numbers
things.
were not
There are
presented.
There are some things where you have to,
All of our rates are based on averages.
but on the information where he can take actual information, he took actual information and not averages. He was very clear on that point. Yeah, we pushed on that point because we knew it was brought up. But unfortunately, the members that brought it up chose not to attend.
So can you describe to me exactly what you want to see from anybody who submit a bid? Because I'm not.
Well, and I'm just going off of what I went online and looked at other REMC rates. And there are rates that actually follow their commercial rate specific, follow Hoosier's rates. And that's what I would like to see. That's one change that I would definitely like to see. And that's why I would like for a subcommittee to put into, or to be developed, so we can put our questions together, get them answered, and then we don't have the dispute.
My only concern about I don't really have a concern about a subcommittee. I'm fine with that. But I think what we get into sometimes is, look, some of these guys haven't been through a cost of service study. Who knows who, that could all change. But I mean, everyone needs that information, not just.
No, I totally agree.
And that's kind of why, like, the committee's kind of like pointless in a sense. Maybe
then I didn't get my questions answered when the subcommittee was disbanded. So.
But you did have some one-on-one time with Larry Feltner.
I did, and it raised more questions.
So again, what would you, how many of these firms are there to get bids from? I have no idea. And what would you ask them to?
Can I get back with you next month on my list?
You said you wanted to.
Oh, but I would like to think about it on an official. So I would be glad to get a list put together.
I just want to be clear what you're asking for, because I don't understand. That's all I'm asking.
Hey, Jeff, one thing we will need to figure out, so I won't be able to bid it without scope, because whatever we're going to ask them to do, obviously, just like on number 3, that's a large study that's going to, we're going to spend quite a bit of money on. So if we don't want them to do that, then I would not put that into scope. So if we're going to bid it, which I'm all in favor for doing, we need to make sure we get this scope down. And I'm not saying you need to vote on it tonight. I'm just saying that scope is critical. In other words, what we were going to have them do to be able to bid it will be critical.
I totally agree with that is critical. So I'd like to at least have a month to think about it, put a list together, and I invite all of you to put your list together and questions and concerns.
I would kind of ask that list be shared before the meeting.
Fine with that.
So we can.
Will we all be putting a list together?
I don't know that I will be.
I'll be glad to share my list.
These guys are going to design rates however you guys want them,
Right.
according to what the IURC allows.
Jeff, you've made it very clear that you're not comfortable with Larry Feltner. Carl, if I could put you on the spot, I think you were in the same camp that Jeff is. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was there.
That,
But same thing. My opinion is that, I think we need to change, and this would be a good opportunity to change. Because you keep doing the same one over and over, it gets repetitious. And I would like to, you want to send information from that?
Okay. So just to make a point, this was the first cost of service he had done for us in a couple cost of services.
Actually, I think he did 3.
Huh?
Didn't he do like 3 in a row?
Because the
Larry.
service kept
Yes, he
changing.
did.
Yeah,
But that's what I'm saying. He did 3 in a row.
using the same data
I don't think so.
with new scopes added.
So that's why I think it's critical. We get our scopes up front. We understand it.
I'm confused. Did he or did he not do all the cost of service studies prior?
No, PSE and Larry Feltner, Ryan Group has done,
Ryan did them, but not Larry Feltner per se.
I wasn't here, so I don't know.
We're throwing a lot of, yep, he did them all. Did he do them all?
No.
No.
Okay.
Can we get a list who's done what cost of service studies over the last 15 years. It should be easy enough to do.
Yeah, hold on.
Yeah.
But again, I don't want to bog down this. It's something you can send. I will put a list together of,
We do have on the iPad, we've been asked that many of times and we put that together. We just need to go back and there's an action item that was asked for that specifically. I don't know that it matters. All these guys follow the same set of rules.
there's major differences in how rate designs are made.
I think we made the difference. We made the difference.
But that's the problem. The board did not make those decisions before last year's or
We covered.
2000.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine. Let's move on. I just,
And why we brought them in to have that discussion, and we weren't able to have that discussion because board members didn't show up.
okay.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Can I get your perspective on this as well? Are you in the same camp as Jeff or in the same position that you would not feel comfortable in accepting the one done by Larry Feltner and the Prime Group?
Well, I had conflicting on what I was told. I really just think my education part needs to be in the calculation. And the only list when Jeff was, I don't know what specifically list Jeff was referring to, my list would be calling the local other REMCs and just being educated on how their cost of service studies are done and how those calculations are performed, because I've never been through a cost of service study. So I'm the first to say I need more education and find out how those formulas are created and what other boards around us use. I mean, that might even be something as simple as IEC helping us out, as he was talking before, keeping the REMCs communicated together. That would be my only list. And then number two, just educating on how the formulas work and the difference between the residential and commercial.
Yeah, so she brings up a good point, and that was something I was going to talk to Feltner because we need to get some board training on this again because it's coming up. But one thing I want to clarify is it doesn't matter what cost of service study you go to, they're following the same set of rules. It's the same IURC guidelines that we're all using. It's cost-based rule making for, this isn't, you don't go to Larry Feltner and get apples and you go to PSE and get oranges.
We put it right in the board education. It's a requirement to have a cost of service study training.
Yeah.
It's required and no one's done it.
Well, on your behalf, he wasn't able to do it last year.
Was asked, but it's never been,
I know.
it's never been done.
Yeah, I mean, Matt has to go through that. Again, these guys are all following the same rules. So when we say, what are our other REMCs doing? Out of the 18, I would say probably 3/4 of those are going to be using Prime and the other quarter is going to go use PSE. It's whoever. PSE does engineering. So some of the REMCs that are already doing engineering with it are going to use PSE. The other ones are going to go use, they follow the same set of guidelines. It's rulemaking that's governed by the IURC. This isn't like a,
So can we possibly set the training up for July?
yeah,
And then after that, we have discussions about the cost of service study.
Yes.
I called Larry this week to see when he could meet with me because I need to understand how it works and he's going to get back with me next week. So if there's some dates that work for people, I mean, I need to meet with him. Sounds like several of us need to meet with somebody, whether it's him or somebody else. I can try to coordinate that with everybody if you want.
That would be great.
So if there's some dates that work, instead of me driving down to Louisville, it makes more sense then for him to come up here, more than one of us.
and some of us have been through it. I mean, I've been through this cost of service study training quite a few times.
I believe I've been through this at least once.
Pressure would be good.
Yeah,
It's pretty complex. It's pretty good.
exactly. He does a good job of explaining it though.
So I figure it's the biggest thing that impacts everything, right?
It all ties back to the cost of service. We set our rates based on cost. Now, how you guys want to set those, whether you do blocks or you do by KWH, I mean, those are inputs you're going to have to give.
You do them how you want it. That's how he makes it.
Right. As far as the design of the rate.
Right. I mean, he plugs in what the parameters you give him and it spits out what it'll be.
Correct.
How I understand it.
In a way, yeah. The only thing I had is does anyone have any input on that scope specifically? And again, I'm not asking for you to prove it. I'm just saying, did anybody have any questions as it relates to that?
Number 6 is a must.
Yes.
I won't vary on that. We didn't do it the last time, and that's becoming more and more of an issue. It's got to be addressed in this cost of service.
Totally agree. 4 needs to be done too. Yeah. Anybody thinking anything on 3? And what that actually means?
Yeah, again, that's one of the things I'm wanting to look at, because I think instead of just, again, I need to do some research, but instead of just calling it a large KVA transformer, wouldn't you go by consumptions? The more consumption they go or consume, the lower their cost of energy should be.
Boom. I agree. Yep. That's what that's about, Jeff.
Instead of breaking out classes, make a one rate that works for everybody within it, single phase.
But that's hard to do.
No, the
Not
members,
They have a very variable.
We're staying within the same class.
In the same class.
Rate in that.
the more you use, the cheaper.
Okay,
your
so,
fuel.
okay. to your-
BWH.
I'm understanding what you're saying.
Block.
Okay, thank you.
I sit around that.
I also think we need to look at commercial rates and get rid of cost causation.
I agree. That's the goal. That's what we want to do, is get rid of cost causation for sure.
Yeah, we took steps towards that. Taking steps, it's a long process.
I want to understand it, that with
My
what
ignorance, but what are you referencing specifically with cost causation?
they're taking 6 months worth of demand charge and putting it into 3.
That's from Hoosier.
Now Hoosier's got summer and winter rates. They go 6 months and 6 months. And we have, just like
This was one of the things.
We
that-
covered this with Larry.
Larry explained this to us. So once again, he did a very good job of explaining this, because that was something that was brought up then also. Once again, not everyone attended.
Our rates do follow the cost from our supplier.
Unfortunate.
The production cost is 3 and 3. They average it over from a cash flow standpoint over. Remember that whole discussion?
Yeah, we have an in-depth discussion on this.
But you got to know how to calculate the cost per kWh.
So there's something in there special for solar rates. Do we need something special for like EV chargers?
We are working on that, but we're not there yet. So I'm hoping to be next year for an EV rate. I'm going to bring something to you guys to the board.
Should that be in the scope?
Should we put that in?
No, I'm going to have that done before this. But it's already working on that.
But would that change with this then? Which is my question, or that rate will be with all that, the new data.
Are you talking about an EV charging rate?
Right.
No, it's going to be completely separate. We'll have it done. I'm hoping to have you guys something in the next 3 months as far as a pitch on creating a new rate for EV
That'd be
chargers.
part of the cost of service, I think. is what-
No, it'll be completely separate.
And then it won't need to be readdressed in the cost of
Yeah,
service.
it's still have to be something like.
So it won't need to be readdressed in the cost of
No.
service.
It'll have to be. You'll have to put it in there to average in with everything else.
No, I'm talking about an EV charger rate. It's not, there is no cost there. I don't know how you would do it.
Right for the.
A rider.
It's like a rate.
It's not technically,
There are no costs to put into a cost of service study. We don't have it today.
I'm not gonna charge by KWH.
There's nothing to throw in a cost of service study.
Okay.
We're doing a mini cost of service study for specifically EV chargers as we speak. It's something that we tried to get a jump on prior to strategic planning.
Got it.
I haven't said a whole lot about it because it's in its infancy and it's very, very complicated how we develop that. But we definitely heard it in the strategic planning meetings. Solar and EV came up a lot.
So tie this off for me. Where are we? What are we doing?
If anybody wants additional things in the scope or removed from the scope, sending out a list for next month. So we can have that. And then also it was requested to get at least the two main groups. I don't know if there's other groups, but the two main groups get a quote from.
So decide the scope next month.
Correct.
Right? We're gonna email the list, have the scope laid out, decide next month, we can roll on.
Yes.
And then Matt's going to work on scheduling us all for
Cost of service training.
Does everybody want to go?
everybody has to go.
Everybody has to go.
It's part of
Okay.
their training requirements.
Correct. Everyone that has not been
Now,
through the cost of service.
Everyone should go. How about that?
Thank you.
I'll be honest, if we're gonna be doing this next, we have to do this next year, and I've been through, I mean, there's a reason we have a rate consultant do all this work. It's because it's very, very complicated. And I've been through three and still learned something. That's why we have them do it. So you need the training, is what I'm saying. Yeah. I need the training.
We're gonna go ahead and move on then. CFC voting delegates. Delegate is Jason. We need, this is the mail-in ballot.
I've got the mail-in ballot, so you
Is
don't.
anyone willing to?
I'll do it. Unless Jason, you want to do it again.
Great.
Okay, I got it.
Jeff? Any discussion? Anybody else want it? Okay, Jeff. Just making sure. Okay. Moving on to line extension true-up.
Okay, so we're trying to hit up. We didn't give her time. Never mind. Is Andy?
Yes,
We just wanted to make sure you didn't need anything.
There was a lot of backfeed going on.
I was voting for the CFC. I thought you were waiting for a vote from me. I apologize.
Oh, sorry.
All right, so line extension true up. So per our policy, the way we do true ups, the idea of a true up is every new service we put in or every line extension we put in, there is a cost to doing that. And the idea is that current policy, you estimate the cost of the project, you take away the revenue credit that we give, and that is what the member would have to pay as an aid of construction. It's per the IURC guidelines. It's what our in-town other utility uses. So anyways, that's how we do it. The problem is that when we do it, what we call a true up. So we do an aid of construction, we go out and do they pay it, we go out and do the construction. And then once construction's done, we start the clock for what we call a 30-month true up. So we start billing them for 30 months. After that 30 months, we look at what the actual revenue credit was compared to what we estimated, what the actual work order costs were compared to what we estimated. And then we look at, do they owe us more or less than what their rate of construction was? In a nutshell, that's how we do it. The problem with this process is it really creates it puts us in a really bad spot as far as member relations, because if Gordon does a project and 30 months later, he didn't use what we thought he was going to use, and now I got to go ask him for $3,000, and that happened 30 months ago. It's a tough discussion. We do reviews. We do it at the end of construction, midway, and at the end, and I can still tell you that's a very, very tough discussion. Number two pain point is the members which goes into being a tough discussion is the members' understanding of the true up costs, where they came from. It's very hard to describe the charges and work orders and things 30 months later. It's just hard for a member to completely understand that. Fourth it could be a timing issue. So we've had a member before where they needed power to test the machinery that they put in with this new service, but they weren't going to be at full load for 4 months. So if we start that time clock, once they go live and we start billing, they're going to have 3 or 4 months where they're going to get crap. And then in the back end, we're going to ask them to pick all that up, which doesn't make any sense. And then the fourth is the amount of administrative burden. I mean, we literally have committees set up right now that we're meeting constantly when these things are closing, so that you have Jenny, myself, now Matt, you have Chris, our engineer, Pat, our operation manager, and Crystal all meeting constantly to go over this. And why is that burdensome is because our work order captures the entire capital cost that we're going to basically put over the third, we're going to depreciate over. The cost of the transformer and the cost of secondary is all in rates. So you can't charge that, but it's got to go in the work order. So we have to go through and actually manually remove that from the work order. Got to be a part of the work order because we got to capitalize it, but it's got to be removed because it's in rates and we don't charge the customer that. So it's a very difficult process. I did do some search. All the REMCs around us, none of them do true ups. And actually I talked to the investor owned in town. I'm not going to go by name. They do not do true ups. Basically what everyone's doing is they're estimating the project. They are estimating the revenue. They're charging the aid of construction and they're done. They close out the work orders like they normally do and they're done at the beginning. So what we did is we went back and looked at 8 cases. Why 8 cases? It was 8 of them that we had the data right there available that we could validate and verify. Of those, and we don't do a ton of these per year, but of those 8, we were basically going to be required to get to collect basically $2,200 in whole. So out of those 8, we were going to be billing $2,200 worth. Now, the range of that is anywhere from a credit of $2,900 to a bill of $35. And so the question I asked is, okay, why such a variance, right? There are 2 sources of the variation between what you estimate and what actually ends up happening. The number one thing is labor. So when we estimate labor, every design is made up of construction units is what we call them. So let's just say we have a construction unit that's a pole with a simple T-arm on it and 3 insulators. Let's call that an A2. An A2, based upon our past history of how long that takes, I'm just going to make these numbers up, but 2.5 hours. That's what's in our system. It's 2.5 hours to do an A2. So when he builds the design in our system, it's building it upon that 2.5 hours because that's the estimated time over an average of our past history on this, right? So that's what he does his estimates to. And then let's say we go out to build this, they hit a rock. Now we got to pull the rock auger out. It's an extra 1.5 hours, 2 hours possibly. Let's say it's damp and we got to set mats out, right? That can add an extra hour. Let's say we only have 2 guys instead of 4 guys. I mean, there's multiple different variations. I struggle because I come from a manufacturing where it's very simple. The costs are always the same, right? Here it's a job shop. Every job is unique. Every job takes, it just looks completely different. So that's the biggest variation. The second biggest is trying to calculate actual net revenue credit, right? So I'm trying to estimate when Dale turns on and off his green bins and when he exactly does that. Even if you talk to the farmer, they're just guessing. We're guessing. We're making an educated guess, but that's what it is in all actuality. So you're trying to guess at what their bill's going to be. Now, where we have a comparable, we'll use comparable data. So if we're building a restaurant. A restaurant's a good, solid, pretty much every restaurant you look at has the same load factor. They look the same load, right? I can look at a comparable on our system if we have a restaurant on the system, and I can pretty much tell you what I think the revenue credit's going to be. Everything else, it's hard. It's really hard to estimate. So those are the 2 main reasons for the variation. So if you look at the backside, I went through those 8 cases, gave you the numbers. And it shows you for each of member 1 through 8, If it's a negative, that means they would get offered a credit. If it's a plus, we would charge them. Remember, we haven't done any charges to date because nothing's came up since the last time we did the forgiving, when we did the actual root cause analysis and said we were going to go out and do communication better, right? So we haven't done charges up till now. We're getting really, really close to our first one here. And then on credits, we did do credits. If you remember way back when we did that forgiveness, we said, no, we have a contract. We do need to do that. Our recommendation would be to eliminate the 30-month true-up process and to simplify and simply consider the member's responsibility to be calculated using the estimated net revenue credit and the estimated construction costs and charging the aid construction prior to work. Again, everyone around us is doing that, including the IOU that's in town. They do it then and there, just like rates. You have some that are above, some that are below, but in the grand scheme of things, if this would have came back saying that we would have, out of these 8 cases, had to have given back $20,000 to the members, then I would say, whoa. We can't do that, right? But it's the opposite. So in general, the members are going to win on this. That's in general, on an average. So that's kind of my pitch on it. There's a lot of other complications that I didn't probably include in here. We do cover the risk of, because I'm always thinking of, okay, what if we do some pie in the sky project and it never comes to fruition? Well, number one, we wouldn't build it until they start building, right? I'm not going to go start putting in $200,000 worth of infrastructure. There's not even a scratch on the ground. But then we can also do contracts and things like that to put in place where we think we're at risk. That makes sense?
How about the ones you've got in the queue right now?
I would suggest that we credit the ones that are going to follow through with all of them, credit the ones that are going to get credited, don't charge the ones that are going to get charged, and moving forward, we don't calculate it. I think you have a contract with the ones that are in the queue. I think you have to, per contract, risk of being sued. We got to follow through with those. This would be
But only if they get a credit.
only if they get a credit, correct. I thought there was a possibility of us reducing variation. We've tried everything. There just isn't a better way to predict weather, dryness of, the environment, rocks. There's no way of getting any better at that. And there's no way of getting any better at trying to guess how somebody's going to use electricity. It's just, you can't. And I actually did do some research and talk to some other folks about what and the response I got is I can't give you the data because we don't calculate it. After that initial aid of construction is paid, we're done with it, except for closing out and capitalizing the cost of work order. We're done with it. So I couldn't get into that because I was wanting to know kind of where are we off. But generally, they said the same thing. Your source of variation is going to be your revenue credit calculation and your labor hours, based upon anything above and beyond standard hours.
I had a couple of questions. You pretty much laid out several reasons why we should do away with the true up. What's the benefit, or why should we maintain it?
The nice thing about maintaining it is the obvious. You're being completely true to cost from the accounting side. I think this was really driven from more of the accounting mind than the practicality of it. And so I'm going to say it out loud to you too. The accountant likes to see things exact, per the work orders, and, just like our rates, unless you have a rate for every single member, you have to rely on averages. You have to rely on some people are going to be above, some people are going to be low. And I think that's how this, I know that's kind of the.
So provided this change would be implemented, is there any danger of the ones going forward that we don't have a true up and somebody we had a true up with last year ended up having to pay X amount of money?
Say that one more time.
Provided we implement this, we do away with the true up. Okay, so we don't do the true up anymore.
Okay.
August of next year, whatever. any danger of that person who never knew what the true up was compared to the person a year and a half ago who ended up owing us?
We've never charged.
We've never charged.
No. This got started right before I started. Because the way we used to do it is what I'm proposing.
Never charged if we paid them.
Correct. Because you guys forgave them and we haven't had one come to the fruition yet at that point. Now, we're really close. We're like literally a month or two.
There's a difference. We forgave. You're saying they've never charged?
No, we have never charged on a line extension when they owe us. True up. Yeah, true, sorry, yeah, true up, not Ada Construction. True up.
On the 30-month true up, we've never charged. If it shows.
We've credited. Remember when we did that?
Oh, I know that, but that's news to me that we have never charged.
We have never. I thought the same thing and I had Jenny go back and I look at it.
Never had no change.
We're doing it already.
Yeah,
We're already doing it.
by default, we are doing this.
Yes.
But if we don't make this,
Right, I
it's
understand.
gonna go, we've got some coming up. I mean, we've got quite a few coming.
Like your question is,
Yeah, but there was a,
you know, we've always said we don't want subsidies. We don't want to subsidize. And if we don't do this, we are
Theoretically.
subsidies, although they're kind of small, but
there was one very big.
yes, but
And I think there's another very big one coming up. That was done last year.
Where there's a subsidy that could be created, is that what you're saying?
yeah,
Generated.
you know, by sticking with this, we're eliminating the subsidy.
I understand.
Yeah, Jeff, I know which one you're talking about. In my opinion on that one, we gotta go through anything that's out there in the queue. We have a contract on, we gotta go, we gotta,
But that's going to be pretty large, isn't it? I have no idea what they paid. I just know they did a heck of a lot more work than we did for the one who had the large,
I would have to know.
because it's just a grain drying system, so it's only used 3 months of the year.
I think I know which one you're talking about, and I think they're gonna be credited. If I remember right, Jeff, like we,
I just want to know that we're being fair. That's my biggest thing.
So what we're,
No. Well, I was shocked to find out we've never charged.
well, because those are the first ones coming up. when
we've
added-
never had anything come up that we needed to charge because you guys forgave all those.
We had one that we forgave.
Yeah,
We had multiple.
I find it.
You guys-
That's the only.
We forgave multiple when I first got on the board because there was no communication process.
We were negligent in our communication to the
that was to a date.
members, yeah, to convey the information to them so that they were almost blindsided.
We did the work and didn't collect the money anyway, so we lost on all sides.
Right.
Correct.
Saying this policy, it's only been in effect since shortly before you
Shortly
started.
before I started.
I can't remember specifically.
Yeah. Jenny, do you remember the time frame when we started the whole thing?
The first one is, the 30-month is like in 2 months.
Yeah.
That's the first member we have on the document list.
Could be. Have to search for it.
I mean, in general, this is good. I know it doesn't amount to many dollars, but it's gonna be pro member.
Right.
Tell she lives down. It's good.
I saw it somewhere. It was on.
From an REMC standpoint, I'd say it doesn't make any difference, but from a member standpoint.
Individually, it does make a difference, but
Yeah.
collected as a whole, it's
it's
not really a needle mover at all.
Indifferent, as a whole, it matters.
It's no, here's the way I look at it too, something I thought of the other night. It's no different than if you went and calculated every single member that's in the base. You're gonna have some that are paying more, you're gonna have some that are paying less, because you're building you have to build a rate on averages because you are, otherwise you have to create one for everyone. So in general, you're doing the same thing. You have to have within class subsidies, otherwise you're gonna have a rate for every single member.
Key word being within class.
Correct. Within class is huge, yes.
And this is all classes.
Yes.
They're not exact.
I mean, you're theoretically going to create subsidies.
So this doesn't need action tonight,
Unless you want to,
unless we want
because we have one coming up.
to the next month.
If you want to, I really like it. I mean, we got some stuff coming up that I'd really like to know. I know in 2 months, but we've got some other ones coming up that I'd like to know where everybody's
What are you
thinking.
thinking?
I want to think about it, but I like it, but I just was shocked that there's never been true ups.
What it was collected on.
We paid people back, right?
Yes, we pay people back. We just have not collected from members.
And then we would only, from here on, we would stop doing the tracking process, but except for the members that were already under contract.
Correct, which we were already.
And then we're not going to
Make them pay.
We would
can't
pay
collect
that.
from
We're
them.
just gonna track it to see if we owe them a refund.
Correct.
That's it.
Correct.
They might get some money back.
How many do we have in the pipeline?
No, there's a bunch,
I mean, is a bunch 6, is a bunch 30?
There's,
probably 12, 13.
6, 8, 10, 12, 14. As of the end of May.
My point is, if you guys feel comfortable about this, that number's gonna grow. Right. Over the next couple months. That's why if everyone's good, it would be good to get it done sooner than later. Like we're just, that number's just gonna increase.
Follow the current policy until it's changed.
Correct.
I understand. That sounds like to me something.
Suzanne, just because I haven't heard your voice, do you have an opinion on this?
I guess I'm still in shock they haven't charged on the true ups that had a balance due. Understand the credits obviously, but I had no idea they never charged on the balance. If there, is that what I'm understanding? If they're balance due, you've never charged those?
Due to board action, yes, you are correct.
Yes.
The board made a decision not to true up.
About 3 years ago, that we had several true ups coming in, and it was brought to the board's attention that no communication had been done with those members in that entire process. So about 3 years ago, the board created a had the staff create a process where they were communicating throughout the entire thing, and they haven't had one come in yet, mature yet, where the member would owe. So we forgave, about 3 years ago, we forgave everyone because of the lack of communication.
We've done credits.
And since then, we've done credits, but not collected.
And we will continue.
Yes, and we will continue to do the credits if we owe the edit through, that are currently under contract.
In other words, ever since this process was created,
We could do that where we'd always eat that, but let's keeping you the work anyway.
then you got to do the work.
Then they're still doing all the work.
So right now, if we do one of these projects with an individual and they build a widget factory, whatever, and they've got the 30 months and they go broke, they leave town a year in, what happens to that contract and who's responsible for what at that point?
So it all depends on if you do a contract or not. So if it's something that I don't know what that widget is and it's, data center. If the data center comes in here, it's to our discretion whether we do that contract. If we do
I
a
thought you were doing a contract with all these.
No, what I'm saying is an actual use contract, not based upon the true up, but based upon you're going to be on this rate for this amount of time. We do contracts like that all the time. Does that make sense? It's
No,
different.
that's not what I'm
How do
asking.
you determine who gets a contract and who doesn't?
Determine who gets a contract. Right now, it's anybody that.
It's risk-based on our part. It's my call on risk-based as far as.
Okay, so that was a really bad example. Let's say somebody's gonna build a grain pit, just a regular run-of-the-mill true up.
Okay.
All right, and for whatever reason, that grain system blows away in a tornado. Well, we're gonna move our whole grain system. I'm not gonna use that anymore.
Yep.
Who's responsible then?
The member, because it's under contract.
So they do have a contract.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We have to do the credits. Yes.
It wouldn't be because we're not doing any, or if they're paying up front, that's all they're paying. So that's why I want to think about it.
Yes. That's actually a contract.
Okay, we do that.
They'd be down there, right?
That's the true up contract. Yes. They sign on the dotted line.
But we're not making anybody pay.
Oh.
That's what you just said.
They would pay the aid construction on.
They pay the aid of construction.
That's what, exactly. So there would be no charge.
But that's my question.
Right.
Something happens, we're not using this facility, we agreed that we're gonna use this much power, we're not doing it anymore, we're walking away from it. But you're gonna say, well, then you're gonna pay the rest of the aid.
When we get to the end of the true up,
But you're not doing true.
in the future, no.
That's what we've asked.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about
No, existing ones, no.
existing ones we do. Going forward, we have a contract that we can create based upon risk, right?
But in the example you're saying, we probably need it.
Yeah, we're absorbing risk.
We would take the risk probably because we're not gonna make John Farmer sign for his grain setup in the case that it's blown away by a tornado. We'd probably eat that risk too.
And it doesn't. We've had one account in the last, I don't know how long.
Am I right to say that?
Yeah, no, you're right. We've had one account that we went out and put stuff in the ground, put a bank up, and they left town.
My only worry with this is we're gonna be on the hook for something.
Yeah.
We're taking all the risk in this proposal,
Correct.
all of it.
Correct.
Now, I know in aggregate, it's a small number in these 8 cases.
Yep.
Which may be a bigger
If someone goes bankrupt, you are at risk.
You gotta get one fail, you get.
Potentially big subsidy. Well, you know, in time with a big number, you could have a potentially big subsidy.
Would it make sense then if your subsidy is above a certain amount, you still go through this process?
Or maybe it's defined by class.
But we still have
Or am I adding-
we still have the agreement for, so if I'm a new 3-phase or industrial customer, a big enough customer, you're gonna have I don't remember.
We cover that elsewhere.
Correct.
Okay.
There's a contract that we can do. We do it with all the folks that do subdivisions. We can do a service contract, is my point. If I have someone come in that say, okay,
So we can clean this up real quick. We can do that with folks in lieu of the 30-month true-up process.
correct,
Okay.
I have a contract that I can.
That risk is shifted from the RMC to the member.
Correct.
Or we
We
share
can
it.
do that today.
Okay.
I mean, similar to our transmission.
That's a lot different.
Yeah.
It's similar to our transmission.
I just didn't want to be wide open on, oh, well, I'm going to build this whatever. And nope,
But we wouldn't do that type of contract for
all right, got it.
Joe, the farmer's building one grain bin. No, you are eating that risk.
Yeah.
If it was a big enough risk, you'll have that contract.
You'll have a contract.
Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't clear.
Just out of curiosity, we've got 8 here. How many do we have in the last 2 or 3 years?
That would be the.
I think we had,
That we paid off.
Or
That we
concurrent.
set.
That
How
we.
many have we settled, Jenny? I mean, I would just be curious, and
on
I
average, it's about 4 a year.
don't want
What a good average.
I'd just be curious to see on the last 2 or 3 years worth that we've done, not,
Yeah.
where we've ended up. How good is our estimating, I guess is my.
That's what this is.
I'm gonna say those 8,
This is 8 of those.
those
Right.
8 are probably the most recent. Those were all ones that were probably forgiven.
The forgiven ones are probably.
Some of them might be.
But some of them are kind of old ones.
To answer your question, that's why we did that.
Yeah.
But to go through every single one of them.
I know, and I'm not suggesting to do that, but when I see averages, I feel better when I'm averaging what I do, 500 numbers than when I'm averaging 10 or 8 or whatever the case is.
I'll put it. That's why. I mean, the advantage of doing it is.
I feel like that's kind of.
It is.
It's close in the grand scheme.
I mean, we do the same thing every day with rates. It's the exact same thing.
Spreadsheet. I'll show you my spreadsheet.
I mean, it's a cost benefit analysis. Is the benefit cost?
Right. It's a tough one. I mean, I could argue both sides of this one and the next discussion, honestly.
Like each month.
Personal preference. Then.
Bill, big recorded. Yeah, and then there's a county.
Yeah, I'd like to not have these conversations, but
Rosemary.
I could argue both sides of it.
Right, table, but if we're never gonna take it, if we're never gonna go collect the money, then.
Well, I'm proposing we're going to if we're not gonna change it. We're not gonna change it. The only reason we haven't is because we haven't had one come up that we
Right.
actually, they owe us, that wasn't forgiven originally.
Right.
But that day's coming up. This first one, they're gonna owe us.
Perceived urgency is the 14 that are in the queue.
And the 4 or 5 that we got possibly coming up.
Oh, that's
So-
14.
That's in the 14.
Yeah.
Okay, so you,
No, a couple more that are brand new line extensions that we're gonna be writing in the next couple.
so it doesn't have 18 of them that short of action, we're going to follow the 30-month, we're going to follow the true up process.
I'm just saying, if you're all on board, do it tonight. If it's not, then, I mean, this isn't like it has to be done. I mean,
So,
But how quick are those gonna get enacted?
yeah, but we're not gonna charge anybody, right?
Huh? No, currently, if we stay with the, that's why it's.
Well, like,
If we don't act, and, yeah, if we don't act next month, we can do the same thing and not charge anyone. But if we don't do anything at all, then we will be probably charging someone in a couple months.
If I watch this meeting tonight, I'm in charge. That's on here.
So that's what the debate is. So,
Say that again, Michael?
so if we do nothing this month, next month, whenever, people will start to be charged for about 2 to 3 months, is what I'm hearing.
Whenever they said it, at that appropriate, okay.
At that appropriate time.
Because the forgiveness was a one-time thing.
Right, it's one time, but we haven't forgiven everybody
I wanted
else.
to make sure I heard that correctly.
What the proposal is that if we do act, then the people that owe, once again, forgive them. But because we're under contract, people we owe, we would still pay over the next 30 months or however many months is left.
Okay, well, and talking
And
about,
in the future, we're just not going to track that.
right,
Been talking about, I'm going to refer here to the outlying exposure that Jason was alluding to.
That's covered.
We've got something mitigating that that's preventing them.
We're not gonna put something in the ground that's for a bigger load without some type of external contract. That's just stored everything.
so we can move on and vote on this next month.
You guys okay with that? Okay. So we're going to hold for next month.
Is everybody in general, do you guys need anything else on this? Anything else?
Can we see all 14?
I would have to spend, I mean, this here took me 2 weeks to go through all the orders and.
Do we not, they don't have that?
And
Oh,
I'm,
we've got,
They got it.
They need the list of the current.
The 14, Jeff, they're not all the way through that.
Yeah, but there should be a couple large dollar amounts in there, right? It's not.
I don't know, that's what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, there's 1 or 2.
There's got to be one.
Well, because you,
I think who you're talking of was forgiven.
No, they just installed this last year.
Oh, then, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
What are we talking large?
it should be a name.
Not now.
No, I meant him come over.
Just outside of Napoleon, between Napoleon and Millhouse.
oh,
I'm like, what's the first charge? You're not large, you're not the same. No.
some of those are going to materialize, and if you don't have.
What's large? Like, is it
I
what?
don't want to make a decision based on one credit or not.
right, I don't either, but I mean, to me, part of it is every REMC around us and the publics are doing it this way, this other method. Seems to me they're doing it this other method for a reason.
The tipping point for me is the fact that this, Jason.
He doesn't use anything.
It doesn't, it was a perceived risk, and we don't have it because we've got mitigating things in place to prevent it. I don't have a problem down the council after they did it. That's, you know, so.
Carl, do you have any specific questions?
We should all probably call into Brett so I can talk.
We got something back for risk.
For big, for really big projects, we've got something backing it up.
Do you have any idea on the 14 or 16, how quickly they're going to come to fruition? It's a 30-month period. How many, Jenny, between now and July?
Now in July, only one.
Okay, there's only one. Because
July.
I'd rather not. I got a couple of questions I'm going to call in and ask.
and it's not gonna act on it.
Do you know what those questions are?
I'm going to call in and ask.
Okay, so there'd only be one.
And I did.
Okay.
Thanks.
Good. So I will put it out there. Do you guys want to vote or not? There's one no.
We've kind of made it standard practice. We weren't going to vote at the same meeting, so.
I'm fine with that. I just wanted to move on out there. So put that on for
Something else for next month.
something else for next month. Okay, we're gonna move on to,
All right, so this one here, we can do the same thing with this. I don't necessarily need a vote on this tonight either. And this is just a suggestion. So today, there are three types of, and we've been through this quite a few times. There are three types of groups of work that we do: line extension, service upgrades, line relocations, and there's policies and rules and regs that cover those. We believe that we come up with a formula to credit replacement of facilities that's past useful life. So I'm gonna throw you a scenario. I have, I'll do my, actually, well, I better not say the name, but anyways, let's say somebody has overhead. They've got a couple poles and they want to go underground. They're either building a barn, I don't know, whatever. They want to go underground with it. The poles are old. The poles test fine, right? So they've tested fine in the last 3 years or whatever within cycle. Per our current policy, that member owes 100% cost to replace that infrastructure to go underground. Because it's a beautification. It's something that member wants. And the theory behind it is just because you want it to look different, why would everybody else have to pay for that? So that's the theory behind that side of it. I believe that there is a cost that is beneficial to the rest of the members at some point as far as credit. Those poles, let's say those poles are from 1950. They passed last year. That doesn't mean 6 months from now they're going to pass, right? So we're asking the member, you owe me 100% to replace this or to go underground. Yet, if a storm comes through in 2 months and knocks all these over, I'm going to replace it for free. Not free, sorry. I'm going to replace what was there. If you want to go underground, all you owe is the difference, which isn't a big amount. So the argument I would make is that anything over its useful life, and we'll have to set what that is, right? For poles, we've got data that suggests it's 42 years. If it's 43, 44, 45, we would base it upon, we would give them some type of credit. And I'm just throwing out numbers. Let's just say 10%, right? I could argue to the rest of the membership, the front page of the paper, that they are getting a value of 10 cents to the dollar to replace part of what I consider plant infrastructure, right? That could fly down tomorrow in a storm and I don't have to send anybody out because it's got new infrastructure, right? So I can make that argument that it is beneficial. I don't think it's 50%. I don't think it's 100%. I think it's something less than 50%. And we could create a formula to determine once it gets past useful life, we give so much credit. And again, we can base it all on data and come up with some type of formula that we can propose to you. I just wanted to know, number one, would the board support making a change to past practice? And if so, what do you need to make that decision? I'm making complete sense. The con to doing this, because I knew you were going to ask Leo, of doing this is that cost is going to be capitalized and depreciated over a certain amount of years, which means it's a depreciation expense that's going to be put into rates, which means other people are going to be picking up some of that cost. Now, those numbers are very minimal over the life of it, right? You're talking very little impact over the amount of members. But you got to realize that is part of doing it. Someone else is picking up sometimes.
do we have good data on ages of all the poles and wires and stuff that we have out there?
We are putting that together as we speak.
Actually.
I think you'd have to have some sort of graduating schedule.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, do we have the data that we know on a property, how long that line?
We have all the data. It's just all on papers and we are working on getting that digitalized and our plan in whole is to plan out a 10-year forecast by age of facilities. I think we need to go replace stuff by age, not by testing it ultrasonically. I've seen a lot of pools come out of the ground that look just fine that failed the test. I've seen a lot come out that passed. I mean, you get a lot of variation there. If you base it off age, you're gonna have a lot better accuracy as far as reliability. But we gotta get all that data together. So yeah, we will have enough data to support that. I can tell you that we did get data from a company that does pool testing on average age test of poles, and it's typically around that 42 years.
So this says currently mutual benefit is cost shared. If it's determined that it's going to benefit the member and the REMC both, there's some kind of cost share that happens.
Which would be
Reading that correctly? Line relocation costs 11 months.
Mutually beneficial, there's a cost share. So mutually beneficial runs into, and they're categorized. An example there would be I'm doing something that's going to add cost to help us. So I'm moving it from
In that, but couldn't you argue in your scenario that we're going to run that, we're going to eliminate these two poles, we're going to put the rest of this underground and that's mutually beneficial?
I don't, that's not past practice. So in the law, in court, it's not been our past practice. We need to make it clear. Is that it? Oh, that's norm sweeping. Sorry. What legal's gonna go off? What has your past practice been? That's not it. And it is a little unclear in here, but that's what I would suggest we change.
So the idea is if poles are 60 years old, there's some value to the REMC as a whole to replace that stuff that's worn out.
Because even though they may test, the probability is.
Right. If once they're a certain age, the odds of them going down. So you're saying if as an REMC, we can replace stuff, if the member will pay half, we get half. So the rest of the members, we get stuff at 50 cents on the dollar because you don't like the way it looks. Or 10 cents on the dollar or whatever percentage you guys pick.
There's subsidized.
Again, the call to doing this is you are creating it will be depreciated over the asset's life and it will eventually go, what's built into rates is depreciation.
But if it falls down 6 months later.
If it falls down, then
I'll go
yeah.
with depreciation anyway.
Yeah. And that's the argument you'd make, right? Just because it passed ultrasonic testing last year doesn't mean next windstorm it doesn't fall down. And then we replace it and capitalize like we normally would. But what's in rates is depreciation. Anything above and beyond depreciation is not being picked up by rates.
But it's really for stuff that's beyond its useful life in general.
Correct.
Is there information that people want brought before next month on this?
Well, there's not much.
Yeah, is there something?
It's just, do you want to consider this?
Yes, is this something to consider, have them work on putting formulas together or suggestions for formulas, scrap the idea?
I think it's a good idea to do the shared cost formulas.
And we could base it upon what the age of the asset is. I mean, there's a big difference between one that's 42 or 18, yeah, and one that's.
You gotta have some sort of graduated scale in there too.
We appreciate our assets, right? Could you just have the member pay 100% what's left of the depreciation of that asset?
You could, but then you'll be depreciating quicker than the useful life. So we depreciate on a 30-year typically. And useful life has been shown.
We won't probably have it broke out by individual pole.
No, we wouldn't either.
It's hard to find that.
You would know. You would know what was 30 years.
But it'd be part of it. Right.
Our whole plan is not depreciated it's not per pole. We could estimate it. I mean, we
could get an estimate. You wouldn't know what that individual item costs.
Generation.
That makes sense.
You don't know what you paid for that.
in the projects too.
Correct.
Because it was done as a whole.
Because it's part of all of it together. There'd be transformer in there probably, you know.
But we could, based upon some type of depreciation schedule, that could be part of the theory, how we come up with the
Yeah.
formula. Yeah, I'm not saying that.
Yeah, that's.
We do know the
That would be a
age
good
of
way.
most poles. Almost every pole out there, we can, it may take some digging, but we know it.
So to me, it's sounding like you should move forward with this, coming up with a calculation for us to look at and possibly approve at a future meeting.
I hear you.
We move on to delinquent write-offs. Everyone's got the number in front of them.
I know you went through.
Couple questions, and maybe we don't have to, but you guys can answer. On the write-offs, I know we were hoping to see possibly bigger drops with the prepaid. We're blaming the not getting these on COVID, I'm guessing.
Yes, we are. It is impossible for us to determine what was due to COVID and what isn't without a probably 2-year project. I would suggest that's the reason why it didn't go down. But Crystal, I don't know if you have anything to add to that. I mean, prepay is gonna help that number. It just does in the long run.
Right, and I see that, and I'm just, like I said, that's what I was thinking, because our payments were screwed up most of the year.
Look at
So in our cycle 3, which is all of our prepay accounts, if we would not have had COVID, we would have eliminated $5,703 from this write-off.
Okay,
which is a big chunk of that.
That is our cycle 3 accounts that we could not disconnect, and they built up balances
okay.
and then moved.
So part of this is because of the moratorium issue.
Absolutely. Yeah,
That is every year, right?
it is. And we go through, so before we do this, we go through and look to see who had EAP,
I want to get on that.
who had deposits, were they not enough?
The moratorium was longer period.
Yes.
Time. That's part of it.
Yeah, it was like nine months,
That's what normally November to
3 months usually, and it was 9 months. So that's a long time to go. Usually it's December 1st to March 15th. Yeah.
So,
But almost $6,000 of it
and that would have brought,
happened if,
right down to where we were hoping,
Yeah.
but who knows if,
so we're hoping for a better 2021,
exactly.
but we're still not bad. I mean, I was actually surprised that we were even somewhat in line with what we were last year.
Right.
You're saying I don't have to pay my power bill in January, February, it'll distract me nasty notes then.
All right, your nasty notes.
Walk to your office.
Okay,
Yeah. I'm busy.
this does. Any other discussion, otherwise motion to. I apologize.
Like you.
Kids.
Is there a motion to?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it. Jeff? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The community trust is just a reminder that Carl and Suzanne will need to find community trust nominations.
Have you guys found them before? Pardon me? Have you had to find one before? Every 3 years, that's nominees.
Did it? I thought. Well, maybe I just talked to her. I talked to her. She was like, I'll talk to her and find out.
And they,
She's got to come off, right?
well, if she's at the end, they can do multiple terms.
No, they're at the end of their term.
Oh, these are at the end of their term limit?
Both Carl and Suzanne will need to find trustmen.
Yes.
Udina's coming off, ours are coming off.
Yes, they have to come off, yes.
I don't think we need those. We'll need them by August.
The next meeting.
Okay.
So, yeah, if we can get them by the next. We need it done. Or always.
It's a much easier sell than nominating committee.
And Carl, if you have anybody that's interested, they want to come in and talk to us about it, just
All right.
call in or have them call in. So,
Okay, that moves on to the education report out. All board members have attended at least 2 educational events, I'll call them, this year. We have a couple board members. Jeff has,
I submitted my request for an extension. I just scheduled to take the class, but I had to do a trip for prep pack. Was unable to attend. We have one more.
so this for CCD, Jeff has one more completed CCD. So he has requested petition that we give him another year. Or until it can,
The class has to be available.
right. Understand.
That may be the following cycle.
So, or until the class is available.
My understanding though, and I might be completely wrong on this, is that there's more access to online coursework now.
Well, I called in today to try to find that and no,
Okay,
not yet.
all right.
But I am,
We're finding,
you know, going to give you a date tonight on when I would be attending, but I was unable to get that.
So that, if anybody has an issue with that, we can, but I think we're fine with that. I talked with Brian. He's also short one class. I think he mentioned that it's offered in November.
August.
In August.
In August, if I'm reelected, I'll take it in August.
And if Suzanne has one class that if she doesn't.
Yes, I offered, I would talk to the OEC. They have some virtual online for that, but it's offered August 6th through IEC, and I just kind of feel it's valuable to sit with other REMC board members live.
Right. So,
My preference would probably be live unless I have to do it prior to my anniversary date, unless it's okay for that.
so that's your last class also. Like I think I said when I mentioned it, you've got a plan for taking it, so that makes sense to me. I don't know if any of the board has any issues with that. I would say just to make it official, take a motion to accept all petitions, exceptions to the rule.
Brian, Jeff, Suzanne.
Right.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
The only issue I have is that my certificate was sent. I don't know. Still have it.
I do.
Dad, you have it.
Just saying.
We said that. Now I gotta put it in a frame.
And we're setting up, because we've had trouble setting up additional cost of service study education. We're in the process of setting one of those up for people to attend that have not attended one. Make sure you get to this one. If you've attended one, try to make sure you get to this one.
So do I need to ask everybody what days work for them, or do I need to ask him what day?
What days work for him?
For him, okay,
After June.
after June 11th, okay.
Yes. Makes sense.
Okay.
Okay.
By date to after June 11th, but before.
By the end of the year.
Well, I want to do it before the end of the year,
Yeah.
because I want to know it's
Pretty. It's a good, it's 3-hour meeting too.
Mhm. Yes. Okay, so just let you guys line that up, see when he's available, put it out there. Probably won't make, we can't make any decision online until after the 11th, so we know actually who's board members there. Next topic then is the meter pole project discussion.
All right, so as you know, we have a project on the docket this year that we're calling meter pole strategy. Don't need anything tonight. I just kind of wanted you to understand the problem that we're probably going to be bringing to you as far as some options if we need some dollars, which I'm assuming we may. That way you kind of know what's going on. So we're starting to work on this now. So we have kind of an age-old problem that I'm actually going to skip to the problem statement, and then I'll go back through some of these pictures. So meter poles in some cases, so we have, a meter pole is like what it says, right? It has a meter on it. But in some cases, it has some member equipment attached to it, and it requires the member to pay an electrician to update or move when a meter pole is replaced. So we go out and test meter poles just like we do all of our other poles. When it gets red tagged, we put a red tag on it. Obviously, we schedule to replace it. And it could have, and I'll show you some pictures here in a minute, a lot of member equipment on it. And so, you know, one point to make here is we could be held liable for damages if the member chooses not to do it. So if we're just basically saying, we're not going to replace it because the member doesn't want to pay any money, you're going to be held liable for that, right? Second one is if we do it ourselves and we move their equipment, stuff that's theirs, which is defined in our rules and regs is after the meter, and it's rusted and we break something, then we can be held liable. Or if we break something, we don't know it, we leave it there and it becomes a hazard, we can become liable. So those are kind of the issues with this problem. And this isn't as simple as a simple meter pole, which is wire coming over, going to the meter, going to underground. I hope none of these pictures are not.
I got wires and I went over right. Never mind. This member here,
As you can see here.
it's not mine. Some of the wires going out.
All these wires, most of these are the members, right? Same thing here. You can see there's a rusted out piece of equipment that's not ours. That's just two examples. Here's another one of some kind of light that I don't know whose it is. This you can't see real well in the picture, but I don't know how it's still hanging up there, honestly.
I thought that mine at first. And I realized it wasn't.
This one just shows that, you know, that's going to be hard to get to and move. It's going to depend on soils. This person here actually got clever. So they made a meter pedestal, but then they just never put it in the ground and they just tacked it to our pole. So none of this stuff that's on the other side, and there's like 2 or 3 boxes on the other side, is ours. And it's tacked to our pole, which now how do we replace this pole without taking all that stuff off? So those are just some of the pictures. You know, there's a lot, these are some of the questions you can read that, you know, we have to pose, right? So we are going to be working with legal quite a bit on this one. There is quite a few different ways we can go on this one, right? We could, I mean, okay, I'm going to start on one side of the gamut, which is you have equipment on there. We're deeming this as unsafe. You have till this date to replace it or we're disconnecting. That legally can be done. Or the other route, which is, because I think you have to plan, you are going to have members that says, well, then disconnect. You know, that's just a fact, right? So we have to know are we going to follow through with that disconnect? On the other side, we could say, we're going to bid out an electrician and we're just going to have an electrician follow behind us. And we'll cover it in a release form that we have the member sign and we pick it up, subsidized by everybody else. Those are the two extremes. I believe there's something in the middle that will probably work the best, but we got to determine what that is. This is an age-old problem that everyone handles a little differently. It's just what flavor do we want? I mean, the other idea is you could literally put another pole right beside it, new one, bolt it to the old one. Their pole is legally now defined as the one that's rotting and ours is the one that's next to it. Not saying that's a great idea, I'm just telling you those are some of the options that folks do. We are also talking about, because we just did a meter poll the other day, and we got to get out of the meter pole business at some point. So whether we set an extra pole, we say this is your pole here, it has all your stuff on it, this is our pole and our meter, or we force folks to build a pedestal. I don't know what that's going to look like, but that's probably going to come to you also because that's built into our rules and regs, and I'll need your approval probably for that. So Questions? Again, I don't need anything right now. It's just kind of an update on the scope of the work of this project. It's not as simple as one wire up, one wire down.
If someone to put a pedestal, so for example, on post, put a pedestal there, then we are responsible for getting it to that meter on that pedestal.
Correct. And they own the pedestal.
Now, what if it's 100 yards away? They want that pedestal.
If what's 100 yards away, sorry.
Well, just like when we place that meter, you put a pedestal over there, which would be 100 yards away next to a building, and that's where they want their meter. Do we go to that?
We would have to. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But to Carl's point, maybe you'd have to put something in there. We're gonna go so many feet from where we are now.
What?
Possibly.
Instead of just saying, hey, you put anywhere on the farm you want. That could be a problem.
How many of these are there?
80. Approximately.
How many?
80.
That's it.
There was 103 in the budget.
Yeah, so some of them don't look like this. So there are some today that our guys are working on. We've touched every one of these meter poles. So Jeff's correct. There are some that we are going to be able to do ourselves as we make time for it. That if it's a simple one where we got one wire coming in, one wire coming out, our guys have no problem doing that work, even though it's the members' equipment. If it's not all rusted and it's something we can just detach, put back on the new pole, there are some of those that we are currently doing this year. The ones, the tough ones are the 80 that look like this.
So are we talking 80 pole top disconnects or we're
Not all that has 80 have pull tops, but probably the majority of them do. Actually, Pat has a listing of, I have pictures of every one of them.
because they all need to go.
Yes, I 100% support getting rid of the pole top switches. And I would also recommend as much as we can put underground secondary, we encourage underground.
Yep, agreed. In an ideal situation, you get rid of this pull top, you put a disconnect at the ground on a meter pedestal, and we get rid of the pole. But not everyone's going to do that, or want to do that, or pay to do that.
Yeah, you have to pay $80 to the planning commission too, or
Yeah.
get a permit.
It's not cheap to run new wires to all your stuff.
No, it's not.
But then we've had people, we've also had members that have poles that look like this and said, yeah, no problem. When you want me to have my electrician come in, and we've replaced them. The other complicated part about this whole thing is not everyone even knows that this is their stuff. We thought about sending out letters, and legal was basically suggesting you guys need to have a plan before you start sending out letters saying this is yours. What are you going to do? But I don't know how many of the 80 are going to be okay with them doing it and how many are not. Because I wouldn't say all the 80 probably even have any idea that they have stuff that's theirs on their equipment, on our equipment, or on our pole. But I think we got to get to a day where we get out of the meter pole business, so we don't have to test them. It's their equipment. It's a clear, just like our substations. It's very clear in the substation where their stuff ends and ours starts. This is not clear because we're both utilizing the same pole. Any other questions? I guarantee you, now that you've seen these pictures, you are going to be looking and you're going to see some other things that you've never recognized ever before, because I know I did. But I do agree, if we can get stuff underground on meter pedestals, get rid of the pull top switch and have them do a disconnect, that's the ideal situation. But we have to plan for non-ideal because we know that's not going to be every case.
And to Carl's point though, about how far to move it, I put up a pedestal when I fixed mine 2 years ago. Had I known about moving it to the building at the time, I would have done that.
Well, that's what I was thinking, seeing from
With hindsight, I would have shoved it all the way over instead of put it in the yard.
Yeah, that's what I finally did, put it on the building.
And had I known I could have done that, I probably would have done that, but I didn't think about that at the time. That my building wasn't done yet either, so.
It's sitting in the air. That's all right.
Okay, move on to policy bylaws. First one, check signing and debit authorization.
So we're as we put in this new process or software, it's called Navex, that we're putting all of our SOPs, all of our policies, bylaws, tariffs, everything in so we can keep rev control. And we have one place to go to that has past history and the correct revision of what's accurate. So we are starting to go through all of our policies, and Jenny actually got the first two. And so we're bringing changes as we see these to match up with what we do today. So on this one, whenever we have to change the bank letters, so anytime we have a change in leadership, in other words, the officers, we got to notify the bank. You guys have to go do the signatures cards, right? So right now, the policy says the CEO, the chairman, will notify the bank through a letter. Well, we don't send letters anymore. We send emails, and typically Jenny's doing that. It doesn't give her authorization to sign it. The board member still has to sign the check card. It's just a communication to the bank that we need to get updated cards made. So literally there's no risk there. The only other change, that's it for that one.
Any issues with the red lines? Is there a motion to accept the red lines? So moved. Is there a second? Second. Steve or Suzanne, sounds like. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Policy 4-1 is modified.
Next is the same way. So anytime we get a policy review, we're changing general manager to CEO, and on letter C, it says to utilize short-term borrowing as a finance tool on a monthly basis. We do not short-term borrow on a monthly basis. Nor do I think you would want us to do that if we didn't need to. Therefore, we're just saying simply remove on a monthly basis. That could probably be left up for interpretation of do we have to do that monthly or not, but we thought just remove it.
Any issues with any of those red lines? A motion to accept those red lines. Fail. There's a second. A second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Red lines. Policy approved as red line. Ryan, you do not have a meeting. Jason.
I did have a Hoosier meeting, May the 11th. The June meeting has been canceled. We'll have an in-person CEO and director meeting in July. Be the first time in a year and a half. And I have been moved to the Finance and Audit Committee. This will be my third committee and my last one on the circuit. You have to serve on all the committees there before you can be elected to the executive board. So this will be my last committee for that. There wasn't really a whole lot new that I need to share right now. The MIRM site, there's one opportunity that's still being explored to utilize the MIRM site, which would bring a lot of benefit to the members. So that's exciting. If that works out, that'll be really good. And the other thing I just wanted to touch on, Brett talked about the refinancing option from RUS. That's another huge thing for us, not just for our borrowing, but for Hoosier. That could be a couple bucks a megawatt. And if that happens, that's a huge savings. So Brian, for the minutes tonight, the forecast by Hoosier is for a $5 megawatt hour wholesale rate reduction.
On average, right?
Average, you say average, over the next 5 years, which includes the all stranded cost and decommissioning costs of MIRM station. And this is due to the change, the closing of MIRM and their new long range resource plan. Our new generation portfolio. just put it that way. That would be easier. Generation portfolio.
Can be passed on to the RMCs.
Absolutely.
Now, we pass that on to the members.
Absolutely. So right now, we're passing that on through the power tracker. Our tracker's negative. That's how that's being passed on. And that's the reason for this whole discussion about Hoosier redesigning their rate or doing a rate design and then us consequently doing the cost of service study.
That's why we're doing.
That's the whole thing. So that's what we're trying to get to. And I know you guys are tired of hearing me talking about $3 a megawatt, $5 a megawatt, but I can't tell you enough. I mean, we're arguing tonight in here about $5,000 or $10,000. It's nothing.
Hoosier drives all.
This deal with the reduction in our wholesale power costs is huge. And like this RUS deal, $2 a megawatt is a big deal. That's $700,000 for our members a year, not 5,000 or 700,000, just from Congress deciding that we can refinance that debt. That's it. And that's a direct pass through for the members. So, I mean, that's the kind of money, that's the kind of numbers that we're talking about. So this is a big deal. And the $5 reduction, because we're closing Miriam and we're changing our whole generation portfolio, that's huge. It's a big deal. So we'll see. And that because there are some stranded costs associated with Miriam Station. That plant is not completely depreciated out. So it's important to note that that includes recovery of those stranded costs and the decommissioning of that site. Because that is a huge expense to clean that up.
I have a question. From what I can tell, Hoosier drives the bulk of our costs.
70-some%.
I mean, everything they do has a bigger impact than everything we do in general. So if I'm understanding right, we're going to close the power plant and buy power cheaper than we can even make it ourselves at Hoosier.
Generally speaking, yes, but not all of our generation is going to be through purchase power agreements. We still do own.
I know we still have a couple smaller plants from what I have read.
But we are replacing the 1,000 megawatts that were being generated at Miriam. We have to. You can't just say, IURC and MISO
will let you close.
We're gonna close Miriam Station. No, you aren't.
How are we gonna replace?
You have to show us on
guys have
how you're replacing those megawatt hours.
How are we gonna replace?
And by the way, if you say, I'm gonna replace that 1,000 megawatts with 1,000 megawatt solar, no, you're not.
No,
it's gonna be a 2,000 or 2,500 megawatt solar because it's not the same.
Right. And then what are you gonna do at night too? That's the next.
Well, but that's why it's only, 40% they give you credit for. So this isn't just, yep, we're gonna close the power plant and we're just gonna buy it on the market because it's cheap. No, you're not.
Right.
This is a discussion we had about like the Texas issue.
Right.
Well, Texas doesn't participate in MISO. We participate in MISO. Yeah.
Yeah.
MISO is not going to allow us to not. You're going to have to
count on that 1,000.
You're going to have to cover your need. And if you can't, you're not closing that plant. So the board has announced, and I could say this here because it's public knowledge. I mean, we've announced that we're closing Miriam in May of 2023. Takes a long time to, there's a lot of pieces that.
We gotta have something take its place, right?
Right. But
have we announced it's taking its place?
I think it's a Schedule Y. The official notification to MISO is not due until 6 months before the closure date. So technically, MISO hasn't been notified. So technically, we haven't gotten the green light from MISO to close Miriam.
Okay.
So that's why they're doing the work on the
So they could technically tell us no still.
It's unlikely because those folks over there are doing the work to procure the power. And most of it is through these purchase power agreements. We're not building, there are no plans today to build generation right now. But that could be part of the portfolio moving forward. But as of today, it's not in the.
So when that changes, then we still have 100% purchase power agreement.
purchase power agreement is still in place. Well, our all power, it's a all power requirements contract with Hoosier. That is still in place. Again, right now, today.
Okay.
That's really all.
But I'm very curious about Hoosier, because that drives more of our stuff from what I can tell, looking at stuff. In 1 month here, Hoosier makes up how things work.
Well, I mean, that's why I think I get a little frustrated with some of this. I mean, yeah, we need to be cost conscious and we need to watch what we're doing, but at the end of the day, it's that wholesale power cost.
Yes.
For members.
Fire hose and wear garden hose.
Yes. For a direct impact for members.
Yes.
It's that wholesale power cost. So, yeah.
There's only so much we can do at the local level.
So anyway, I think it's great news. I think, you know,
That's why I'm asking you what's going to happen.
It's exciting. I mean, I hope that they get the RUS repricing passed because it's another big win for our members. It's not about us necessarily, but that will direct.
Impacts every single REMC in the entire country.
Yeah.
Well, all the ones that have our US.
Well, yeah, if
A
you're
lot of
CFC, you're
CFC,
kind of up the creek, but
Well, you're paying more to initially from them borrowing.
yes, but you really have to creek them. You don't get a
Yeah.
smile your money.
So anyway, that's Hoosier right now. We've got the strategic planning thing coming in August. Again, you know, there are a lot of moving pieces over there. You don't just close a coal plant of that size and, hey, good job, see ya. You know, there's a lot of work going on over there.
Not like flipping a switch. Huh?
No, somebody's not calling over there tomorrow. I think today's a good day. Just kill that thing. No, that's not how this is gonna work at all.
So they're doing one last REMC tour plant. So Jeannie wasn't able to go her last time. Sam's new and then Matt's new. So I'm taking them down there next Friday.
Okay.
Get to see how power is made.
Yeah, it's cool to go to if you've never been. And there, you know, just to give you a little background quick, Hoosier has made a lot of provisions for the employees there. There's like 280 folks, I think, ish, that are affected by that. And obviously our part of our service territory is where the mine is. So, you know, it affects all those folks. So Hoosier has been very,
We're in Southwest Indiana, it's bad all the way around.
yeah. So Hoosier's been really good about retraining, and helping some folks to early retirements and, helping others relocate. You know, everyone knows you're closing this. It's kind of hard to, you know, you're going to have some shit along the way, but they're trying to keep things going. So where we're at.
How many years of depreciation left on them? I mean,
That's a really good question, and I don't know, but I know that we are doing it over 15. We're going to recover that over 15 years, and then that's a little bit easier for the 18 to swallow. So, anything else? That's it for me.
Steve, do you have a meeting?
Yeah, we did have a meeting on April 28th, which was a week after our last monthly meeting. Earl Ridland presented the audit report, their opinion, which means the financial statements are free of any material statements. John Gastrom provided an update on the dues working group. Options were to be discussed at the managers meeting on May 12th. Brad, did you go to that? And I don't know if you're at liberty to really, was there a discussion on
The dues formula?
Yeah.
Yes, we made a recommendation.
Okay, and it's going to be brought back to the board, I think probably in June. I don't know if they came up with a time frame.
Yeah, and it's a simple change to do to the dues formula. It is
Not huge.
very little.
Okay. And then there was a survey that was sent to the board and the co-op CEOs regarding the facilities and the options going forward. I know I've talked about this several times. 3 years remaining on the current lease, and there is a committee meeting next week to go over, which I'm on, to go over the survey results. So hopefully I'll do more at the next board meeting, which is in June, or the last day of June. That's all.
Okay. Did anybody attend any classes or training? The only thing I have left is, all board members need to be present here for the, election on the 11th. So.
What time, do they want to, do we have duties for the drive-through?
Jeannie's going to get with you all on any duties during the drive-through. I think what he's talking about is specifically.
For the meeting.
You're saying for the meeting.
I would suggest the drive-through stuff is going to be totally voluntary.
Sure. Yeah. The meeting starts at
6:30.
6:30, so before that. Okay. I think that everything, we have an executive session.
Could I have the floor for 1 minute?
Sure.
This is not a formal motion because I'm respecting the deal of let's throw it out and we'll vote at the next meeting. But I'm prepared to make a motion to discontinue requiring members to notify us of attendance of board meetings. And here's why. We all know the history of how we got to open meetings and all that, and they were closed and then we opened them, but required you to tell us you're coming because we were a little limited on space. But more importantly, if we were talking about sensitive issues, member-specific things, you were kind of adjusting an agenda. Well, now that we're recording the meetings, there is none of that anymore because we're doing all that in executive session. And people are not allowed to attend executive sessions anyway. It seems like, and I'm making an assumption here, that the consensus of the board is that we will probably use this space as our boardroom from now on instead of meeting back there. I think we kind of, I don't know that for sure, but it's kind of what I've gotten from people. So we're not limited on space as much.
With this motion, I would say have to stay out here. If that's
Right.
Just because.
But, and you know, people, it doesn't always get followed, and who's responsible for policing it and all. Just do away with it. If you want to come to the meeting, come to the meeting. But I still encourage people to grab a cold sixer and sit at home in their PJs and watch it online, because you can rewatch it as many times as you want. But, you know, if you feel the need to be here, okay, that's good. I think it's good that people are running, participate, honestly. But I don't really feel like there's a need for the members to have to notify if they're coming anymore.
I agree that my modification would just be in case, because even in here, we can't, so they know how many to set up for. I would appreciate still a courtesy call day of the meeting. Just because they said.
You could offer that. Hey, call us and let us know you're here so we have room for you, but it's not a requirement.
And what I would suggest too, Michael, we will come.
Right.
The risk of getting 30 people in here is not very high.
Hey, first come, first serve.
And we'll
Number 31.
we'll accommodate. If we need to get more chairs, we'll get more chairs. If we got to do it out in the parking lot, we'll do it in the parking lot. I mean, seriously, we'll accommodate.
I don't know. I just think it's a lot of heartburn, and
I agree.
It's unnecessary.
I want to get rid of, I totally agree, get rid of the 7-day notice. People forget to call in or whatever. But like I said, I would just a courtesy call to make it easier to set up for the staff here would be my preference. I can go without notification at all though.
Chair.
So,
Yeah, there you go. You don't call, you may be standing, but
yeah.
it is a pain on me though. I mean, Connie had called me in perfect timing and I literally had just forgot to call her back. So, I mean, it is.
And it's not because of that.
No, I know.
Because of that issue. I feel like it's caused a lot of grief for nothing.
Agreed.
Sorry. And because we're meeting in here, that's changed a little bit too. And we're recording everything now. I don't know. That's just so again, I'm not asking for a vote tonight. But you can add it to the list for June.
So something I thought about, another thing to possibly add to the list for June, something a little different. And it's because I've heard from board members of other places, are virtual board members calling in virtually and whatever. I love the possibility, but I think we need a policy in place so it doesn't get abused. no one's abused it yet that I know of, but I think we should have some sort of policy putting a limit on, 4, 3, so someone can't just every month call in virtual.
Directors.
Directors.
Oh, I thought you were talking members. Okay.
So like I said, no one's abusing it. I just think it's something to think about and put in place before. Like I said, I don't think anyone here will abuse it, but it's something that now that it's a possibility, I don't want it to become an issue. That makes sense.
I won't take it personally because this is my first one ever to call in on that comment.
So, yeah.
And I'm
no,
just now going through Effingham, Illinois, coming back from my daughter playing in a national tournament. So I won't make a habit of it. And I won't take that comment personally either.
So, like I said, and I know several people, I really like the option because it keeps everyone involved, but like you said, it's hard to have good discussions when people are called in.
Be close to a call in tonight.
So something else to think about for future discussion. So with that, a motion.
Just a reminder, the June meeting, is it moved to Tuesday?
Yeah, I seconded it. Huh?
Wasn't there a request to move the June board meeting?
Yes,
Stated, I don't know if that had ever been.
that's a good question. I don't know. I gotta look at it. It's never been made official.
Okay, I just want to raise that issue. That's,
Actually, since all three of you are here, if the June meeting was moved, because we don't know who's going to be it, would you know what's the date?
June 22nd.
22nd. Would that be a major issue for you three, or were you planning on, if you made it that, in the 24th instead? So.
From the 24th to what?
22nd.
To the 22nd.
Be a Tuesday instead of a Thursday.
Right. So, since you're still here, no issues there. I think you guys worked out that it's gonna be,
I'm gonna be on vacation that whole week, so.
that you were gonna be calling in anyways, and that allows Suzanne to call in, is that right? Is that right, Suzanne? You'll be called in then also?
No,
On the
I will be
22nd.
attending if it moves from if
Okay.
it moves from Tuesday to Thursday. I will be in
Okay.
attendance.
Okay, you will be in attendance then, so, I don't think I need a motion or anything.
so I
But I'm gonna make it official now. The June meeting is moved to the 22nd. Okay? So this is your notice.
Actually, you do need a motion.
Oh, do I need a motion for that? Okay.
Yeah, you should.
I guess I should need a motion. Can I have a motion to move that June meeting to the 22nd? Who said that? Jeff? Second?
I'll say it.
Favor?
Aye.
Okay. Meeting is moved to the 22nd. The next board meeting is moved to the 22nd. Thank you for bringing that up. Now I'll ask for a motion to adjourn to executive session. Second. All in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Favor. Carries. That's a meeting. Okay, at this point, we're going to move out of executive session. And I will take a motion.
And I will make a motion based on a completed evaluation and the terms of the contract. I make a motion that we award Brett Planet, the CEO, a $5,000 bonus to be paid through normal payroll process at Decatur County REMC.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Aye.
No. Aye.
That was opposed, correct?
Correct.
Just making sure. Okay, motion carries. At this point, we will move back into executive session. I will. I'm going to move out of executive session and make a motion.
And I will make another motion. I make the motion, excuse me, to effective July 1st, 2021, make an offer to extend the contract of current CEO Brett Planet for a period of 3 years at a base salary of $185,000 with some finite wording regarding how a potential bonus might be awarded to him. The $10,000 bonus potential for each of the 3 years would continue to exist, but we need to be a little more finite in how we word that and include that in the contract. And any discretion needed from a legal review, this is all pending legal review. Any discretion needed based on that legal review would be granted to the chairman of the board.
Is there a second? So moved. Tracy. Any further discussion?
Just to clarify, the 3 years starts in July, would be in 22, 23, it'd be 24, would be the end of this.
July, it would start July 21. It'd be July 21 to June 22 to June 23. June 30 to 24.
Other discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Opposed.
Aye.
Motion carries.